All right, we are live. We are live right now. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Kava podcast. You guys already know my name is Will. I am the host of this show. Man, today I am super excited today. I am very super excited today. I have a very special guest, It's one of our Polynesian sisters all the way from New Zealand. And I believe I'm excited today because she is, to me, she's the first celebrity joining us on today's podcast. And I know she doesn't admit, she's very humble, but I'll let her share her story. But I'm excited today. Just want to say to her, thank you so much for the opportunity to come and join me on my podcast today to share her life story. So I'm super excited for everyone that's watching. For everybody that's watching this for the very first time, thank you so much for all the love and support. Please show some support, like and subscribe to my channel. And for everybody out there that's been showing me so much love and support, sending me some positive message. Thank you so much for all the love and support. It actually inspires me and allows me to keep going doing what I do. So thank you so much. But I'm very excited today. I'm very excited to introduce this guest to you guys. And like I said, I'll let her introduce herself real quick. So it's all you.
Malole, kia ora, and warm greetings, everyone from Auckland, New Zealand. My name is Diamond Langi.
All right, so it's good. You ready?
Yes, hopefully.
Diamond Langi, thank you so much. Like I said, just want to thank you so much one more time to you. Very grateful for this opportunity for joining me on this show to share your life story with everybody. And I'm excited. So I guess we'll get right into it. The very first question I'm going to ask you is, how did you grow up?
So before I dive into this great question, well, I just want to say thank you so much for having me on this podcast and for being a light and paving the way. So yes, I'm excited. How did I grow up? So I was born in Auckland, New Zealand. Mm-hmm. And when I was about 4, my family and I moved to Brisbane, Australia, where we spent a few years there. And then after that, we moved to America. So predominantly, my whole upbringing was brought up in Salt Lake City, Utah. So I got to plug in my city, Glendale.
Glendale.
So
hey, I know about Glendale. It's pretty rough. It's pretty rough out there.
So a lot of my childhood, becoming a young woman, and then of course a teenager was spent in Salt Lake City, Utah. And then yeah.
Yeah, so growing up, what age did you move to New Zealand? What age did you move to New Zealand?
Did I move back to New Zealand?
Yeah, so like where you at right now, yeah.
I was 17.
17, okay.
17, yeah.
Was there like a culture shock, like the difference between growing up in America and then when you moved to New Zealand? Was there like any difference that you saw when you moved?
Oh my gosh, it was such a huge culture shock for me, just because 90% of islanders live here in New Zealand. It's everywhere. And I just remember going to Southside, Otada to be exact. I just was so shocked because I just felt like I was in Tonga. Mm-hmm. We're in Utah, like you do run into polys here and there if there's like festivals or there's like a music concert, but we're spread out. But here, like it's normal to see islanders everywhere, and yeah. I loved it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. But at the same time, it was like a reality check for me because at the time my lea whakatonga wasn't good. You know, like growing up, like in Utah, how I would interact with like my friends, like we'll say something like like stop being funny, like tuho whakakata, and then that's it. Like that's the most common. But then here it's like I remember when I went to school, I remember someone I still remember the question, like this guy asked me, he's like, oh, okay, how me fe me tonga? And I just was like, oh my gosh, like I wasn't used to people saying oh, Tongan princess. So I was like, oh, so I would say it, but then I remember from that day, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to step my Tongan up. So yes, it was a culture shock. It was beautiful and refreshing, but at the same time, it was quite scary for me because, like I touched base on, like my Tongan wasn't good. So I was like, oh my gosh, I knew right away if I'm trying to survive in New Zealand, I better step up my Tongan. So yeah.
You realize that you have to speak more than like one sentence.
Yeah, I was like, dang it, I can't get away with one word.
That's cool. That's cool. So I want to ask you, people, if you're watching this on this podcast and don't know, Diamond Langi, she is very accomplished in different things. I know a lot of I know you're an actor. I've seen your videos. I know you're a model. I know you do a lot of things on TV. So there's a lot of things that you do right now in your life. So I want to ask you, and that's why I always tell people, for me, when I see Polynesians elevating themselves and doing really well, it excites me, because for me, when I see other people doing really well, that inspires me to know that if you can do it, I can do it. So I want to ask you, looking back at your childhood, right? Because for me, I always feel like, how we grow up as a child and the different experiences that we go through, kind of like, it kind of like dictates who we become later on in life. I guess it molds us, who we become in life. So looking back at your childhood, do you have any experiences that you felt like definitely helped you be who you are today? Figuring out of your purpose, figuring out what you like to do, figuring out your own mind, the way you think right now. Because if you're Polynesian, when we grow up as Polynesian, there's a lot of traditions, expectations, things that dawn to us at a really young age. Not only for men, but I feel like, my own personal opinion, it's more compounded for women. Like, you guys have more expectations to fulfill and obligations, and then the men, they just let us be free. So I'm just interested to hear, is any that other specific experiences that you went through in your childhood life that you felt like that definitely impacted of who you became, the woman that you are today, when you're looking back now?
Yes, absolutely. I would have to narrow it down to two. So, of course, those or people are aware that, when you move to America, you have to have like a green card or citizenship, or to have this to be able to work. So, of course, my family moving from Brisbane and moving to America, we didn't have that. So my dad had to work yard work,
Yeah.
for us to be able to survive. And I'm really thankful for this because the struggle was extremely hard,
Yeah.
because we couldn't, none of us, my mom, my dad, nor myself, um, could work because we didn't have a green card and we didn't have that access. So the only income that we were relying on was my father's. So there was many times where I remember, like, after school we would go to different companies, or even like schools, and my parents would go and clean, and
Yeah.
they would tell me to just wait in the van, or I'll wait in the office. But seeing that determination, and the whole reason why we moved to America is because my parents wanted me to become what I wanted to become, and I'm very thankful for that. I've
Mm-hmm.
always had a passion for performing arts,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm very thankful to have parents who allowed me to be that, gave me space to breathe and be like, okay, you want to be performing arts? You want to be in this field? You want what to do? Acting, music? Let's move to America, and because everyone, and I still believe this as well too. When we look at America, we look at possibilities, like the
Yes.
dream is
Yes.
there. That's where we need
Yes.
to go. And that's the whole reason why we moved to America, was because my father saw, he was like, she has potential, didn't even second guess it.
Yeah.
Just moved. But that's what I love about my parents, because my parents are dreamers as well too.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful God picked me to be their daughter.
Man, that's good. No, it's funny. It's like just hearing that. Number one, don't shout out to your parents. By the way, shout out to your parents. Much love to your parents. Yeah, and that's for me. Like which part of Tonga did you say? By the way, which part of which village, which call?
So there's three: Vaini,
Vaini.
Fasi, and Nuku.
Okay, all right,
And then there's Fatai as well too.
all right. But shout out to all the callers you just mentioned, all the
Those like in all of the four.
all the callers out there. Shout out to all the callers out there. What? It's funny when you talked about that. I can kind of relate because I grew up in Tonga, and then I moved out here, and it was the same way. I moved out here. When I first got here, I didn't have any papers. When I first got here, I didn't have any papers. But I remember coming from Tonga with I always saw America as like the land of opportunity because I always watched the movies in Tonga. And whenever I saw America, it was just like I just saw like a different life. And I guess that for me, I think that kind of developed my mindset. That when as soon as I touched base in America, I was like, oh, I was excited to do something. Because if you grew up in Tonga, I mean, as much as how much peaceful and loving and happy we are in Tonga, but a lot of people don't know that there's a lot of struggle in Tonga. There's a lot of struggle in Tonga, but there's also there's a lot of lack of opportunities as far as growth in there. And then for me, I always tell people like about people, and of course, a lot of people undervalue what your parents did, and I think that's something I see a lot with the American kids over here. They don't realize like the work or like in Tongan we call it Kava, the Kava, like what our parents went through, how hard it was. And for me, like, even though when I go through my own struggles, I always think about what my parents went through. It's like, man, I'm here complaining about what I'm going through, but I can't imagine like my parents coming to a different country, learning a different language and just trying to figure things out on their own and adding like a family to it, supporting a family to it. So that definitely always like gives me like a sense of pride and hope. Even if my parents got here, they can get here too and just create a life, then I can create a life for myself. So for everybody out there, shout out if your parents are immigrants, shout out to all your parents out there and appreciate what they've done, and hopefully that inspire you to try to live a better life. So for you, what work, when you were working towards your passions in life for like arts and everything, like what was the hardest thing, like looking back at your childhood, like what was the hardest thing for you to fulfill that I guess that calling or that purpose or that vision you saw for yourself? Can you talk about that journey? Yeah
I feel definitely would be just having the resources to be able to pay for certain things. And sometimes I look back and I'm like, if money wasn't an issue, definitely things would have been different. But at the same time, I'm so thankful that money was an issue because it shows you the appreciation that, as you touched based on that, your parents have put forth for you to be where you're at, and also have that understanding, just normal life, and connecting with people. And sometimes I think like if I were to be on that level, I wouldn't connect with people the way that I connect with people nowadays. But I think it's so important to just be very grounded and look at people the same,
Yeah.
So I'm very thankful money was an issue, because I think no matter the stages that God puts you, where he takes you, it's always going to be that reminder that, oh, I was there. My parents experienced these experiences. I experienced this experience. And wherever you or whoever you become in life, that will never be a factor, that those things would never be removed from you. And I feel like that's why some people just stay grounded for life because of those beautiful experiences.
Yeah. So what you're saying is like, when you stay grounded, like stay humble, right? Stay humble.
Humble, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. and don't be ulupupula like some people are. Yeah, so I'm interested. Can you talk about like did you face a lot of like criticism? Because for me, I know within the Polynesian community, and as much as I love our Polynesian community, as much as I love our people, but I know it's not like sometimes there's a lot of judgment. You know, they may not be the best support system, especially when you're trying to do something for your life that may be different than what a normal Tongan woman is. You know, because clearly, like you just, you know, that's why you're living a life that and doing things for your life that, you know, a lot of people dream about. So when I talked to you, I asked you, as you were working towards your dream at an early age, did you hear a lot of like negativity or people just saying, hey, it's not possible, you can't do it, you know, especially in the beginning stages of your life when you're still trying to like perfect your craft and you're not, you know, you're still trying to learn. Because I feel like, and I want to say this to people because I know a lot of Polynesians out there watching right now, you have a goal, you have a dream, you have something you want to be in life. But it can be really hard to navigate through that because, you know, you're going to receive a lot of pushback, a lot of people that don't understand your lifestyle, what you want for your life, especially if you're family, because, you know, when you do something different that's out of the norm, you know, people can perceive or judge that in a different way. So that's one of the hardest things I feel like, that working towards your success or to your passion, your calling, that you have to overcome these hurdles and these people that you like I think you said, like block out the noise and just kind of focus on what you want to do. So I'm just interested to hear that, you know, what people were saying, or what did you hear as a child? What are the things that people were, one of the hurdles that you went through, and also how did you overcome it? How did you stay focused? How did you kind of keep that tunnel vision and not let people keep you down, but allow you to grow and be yourself?
You know, I think that's a very great question. To be honest, I'm very lucky because my backbone, of course, is my parents, but my father being the oldest. And when we moved to America, family there. So it's predominantly my dad's family. So since he was highly respected, there was no back talk or there was no like little murmurs because there was that healthy fear that a lot of his siblings had to my dad.
Hey, that's the first time I heard that word, healthy fear.
So even if, you know, his siblings wanted to say something, or, you know, like my cousins wanted to say something, there was no room for it because everyone knew, okay, Langi, that's my dad. He was the oldest, like having that healthy fear. So if my dad was like, oh, my daughter's gonna have something, so they came and supported, you know, and he didn't want to hear, oh, lava mea, things are not gonna go through, because my dad was a dreamer, as I touched based on like my mother. So there was no room for doubt, and they didn't want to create that space for me. So predominantly my whole life was always about, you can do it. Whatever you set your mind to, you can do it. And of course, I remember being in Brisbane, my mother's family was very supportive as well too, because you know, like I think they just enjoyed me being an entertainer or a clown. I'm not sure, but they were like, oh, I hifa, so I'll go and dance in front of everyone and sing, you know, be matakakai. So they were very supportive. I think the pressure started to come down on me when I actually started to go to school, because the middle school that I went to was predominantly Caucasian and wealthy Caucasian. So it was, their parents were like the governor or, you know, high in the church. So, you know, their families were very successful and wealthy. And there wasn't many colored people at this school. And I just remembered, you know, coming from a very supportive system and going to this school, I always had that vision. I wanted to run for president, but everyone was saying, oh, it's hard. Like if you run for president, because, you know, a lot of the students that are going to be running against you, their family is connected to the school. They have backing, of course, money. they have different connections. But for me, I was like, it was a dream. So I remember dreaming about it, and I was like, no, I'm just gonna give it a go. And I remember my peers saying, like, that's like, how can you do that? Like, you're Polynesian, like, it's gonna be hard. So I actually started to kind of study my atmosphere. Like, what can I do to actually win presidency? And I knew right away, naturally, I was a social butterfly. So I started connecting with everyone, like just mingling, but not mingling in the sense of like I wanted to get their votes. Like it was
Yeah.
mingling because I was actually really interested in the individuals that I was talking to, because of course if you're running for presidency, you're going to make different changes in the school. So you want to actually figure out what needs to be implemented in the system to help out. Sorry, I should have put my notification.
Now you keep typing.
So yeah, it was more of students talking to me like, that's going to be hard, that's going to be difficult, like we're going to get the money. And yeah, and I ran for presidency and won at my middle school, so it was fun.
Hey, I want to whakapale you right now. Mali. Great job. I want to ask you, when you won the presidency, when you won being president in your middle school, how did that affect your mentality and your confidence? Because this is one thing I always tell people, because a lot of people look at me and they're like, "Man, you're so confident." And I always say, "How do you?" And always that's one of the main questions they always ask me. How do you become confident? I tell them, confidence is something you work on. It's not something you're just born, come out the womb. Hey, it's something that you have to constantly work on every single day. And for me, like confidence comes from doing things that you never thought you could do. And then when you achieve those little small tasks, it just gives you confidence. Oh, wow, this is something I put my mind to and I accomplished it. Wow, it was something I thought I never could, but now if I can accomplish this thing, I can accomplish the next thing. And it's a work in progress every single day. And for me, I mean, I still have my doubts here and there. I'm a human being. but I tell people all the time, just strive for something, have a goal, do something, whatever you want to do. If you like, just start and work towards it. Because once you accomplish one task, is because you already know when you do something, when you put your mind to something and you've never done it before, and you accomplish it for the first time, it gives you so much like pride and joy. Oh my God, like I just accomplished this, and I never thought I could do it, and you just did it, and it will actually empower you to keep going and do more. And as you accomplish more in life, naturally you're going to become a better and stronger person, and that's how you build confidence. So I want to ask you, when you accomplish that president for the first time, and I want to ask you, by the way, were you the first president Polynesian ever in the school history, or was there people have done it before?
Yeah, so I was the first Polynesian and first colored to win
Masi,
president.
masi. But that's what I'm saying. So when you did that, when you accomplished something that's never been done before, how did you feel? And just looking back, I don't know if you can still remember, but how did that impact your confidence of what's possible for your life? If you can just talk about that real quick.
Yeah, so I definitely felt a huge immense of joy, because the whole purpose of me running for presidency was for Polynesian students to be looked at in a different light.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember when I first walked into that school, it was already that judgment placed on us, like, oh, they're gonna just muck around, they're not
Yeah.
gonna have a high GPA average,
Yeah.
they're not even gonna be taking school seriously. And I wanted that to change, that mindset, especially for teachers and the principal, to look at Polynesian students and actually see huge potential in us. And of course, for the Pacific students that were going to be coming the next years for like Clayton Middle School, I wanted that to be different for them and their experience to be a more welcoming experience. It definitely built my confidence, because I think it just sparked the daredevil in me, like, okay, what's next? Like,
Exactly.
what are we going to do next? So I'm very humbled and thankful for that experience, because I feel like that was kind of like my pivot in a lot of things. I always relate back to that that experience for me, because like with everything that I do, I'm like, I don't have that mindset of like, am I gonna win? Am I gonna lose? I'm like, when am I gonna learn?
Yes.
You know? So I just try everything and I don't care. Like, but I'm thankful for that experience, because it's from that where I'm like, oh, just give it a go. If I don't win, or if I whatever happens, I've learned something, I've gained something, I've connected with new people. And
Yeah.
that's a win already. So yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I love that. I love that what you shared, because I think for me, just from a lot of Polynesians, or just people in general that ask the question, I guess one of the hardest things to figure out uh, in our life in a very young age, just figuring out like, I guess, who we are as a person, our self identity, and also figuring out like how what we want to do in life. And those are usually the two things that we have to figure out at a very young age. And for everybody that's listening, I love what you said. Like, you just try it. Just try it and go out there and try it. Because because I always hear from my siblings, from my cousins, ask questions, and what can I do? I was like, just try many things, try certain things. Because if you try, it doesn't work out, great, to try something else. But you will never know what you can do or who you can become in life if you never and try it. And then, like you said, once you got that, once you accomplish it, you spark that fire, that bella in you. Like, ois, ois. Like, if I can do this, imagine I can do something else. And that's why I just want to encourage everybody that's watching this. Like, we are all and like you said, I know there was a lot of stereotypical judgment against stigma against Polynesians in your school. And for me, I know that that happens in all society, especially in Western society. They always think that we're not, as Polynesians, we're only good in sports, we're only good for like labor jobs. But for me, like, I meet Polynesians every single day. Oh my God, we're just so much talent and potential in our community. I meet so many great singers, intellectual people that could be doctors, that be lawyers. But I guess, like you said, I guess it's just that fear that stops a lot of people. I do want to ask you, based on your own experience, not only with yourself, but with your own Polynesian community and friends and people you connect with, like, what's usually the thing? What do you see within people within the Polynesian community that stops them from taking that step? Again, what do you see? I'm interested to hear that, because I feel like that all of us would go through something that stops us, but we have to overcome that first step to take that step. But what do you see within your friends or your community that why a lot of Polynesians can't take that step of trying new things?
I feel the biggest point would be fear, and then it comes down like different facets of fear.
Yeah.
It can be like their peers around them saying, no, you can't do it. It can be themselves saying, I can't do it. It can be their situation that they're currently in. So it's different situations, but I think it's just understanding. And it's quite interesting. I had a conversation with one of my good friends last week, and we talked about fear. And many times when we come to that block and we have to face fear, the percentage is very high that we turn away and we're like, no, we don't need to do that. But
Mm-hmm.
it's having that, knowing that, but what can I gain if I just pass that level of fear
Mm-hmm.
and actually build a healthy relationship? Like, people, when it comes to fear, there's negativity attached to it because there's so many things that come with it. But actually changing that mindset and looking fear as a positivity, because that fear is the unknown, and what comes with unknown is new experiences. And some people don't want to go through that, but
Mm-hmm.
that's how you grow as a person. So actually looking at fear as a friend, a competitive friend.
Befriend your fear. No, that's absolutely true. Like, it's always like, how we see things that kind of dictate like how we feel. And I always tell people, you have to change your definition of fear, because
Mhm.
usually we're conditioned that fear means stop. Fear means run away,
Mm.
but yeah, the conditioners of fear means, for me, I have to really like reprogram myself. When I'm afraid of something, I know it's something that it means I'm outside my comfort zone. And for me, when I'm outside my comfort zone, that's where I grow the most. So whenever I'm afraid to do something and I'm about to back out, I was like, oh, wait, it's making me uncomfortable. That means it's challenging me now. And it's like, this is how life is challenging me right now. And I just gotta walk through it. And because, I wouldn't be who I am today if I would have stayed within the comfort zone of what it was to be a Tongan, because at one point in my life, I thought that I could only like do certain things in life. Like I grew up, I saw my family do yate. I saw my family do work at the airport, and my mom was a caretaker. And just by the way, nothing wrong with those professions. I'm nothing wrong with those professions. But for me, I remember just looking back at my life, I was very limited of what I thought that was possible. But once I started going outside my comfort zone and challenging my mindset, that's when I realized, oh, there is something different. There is, that, like you said, the unknown. I could be a motivational speaker. I could start a podcast. I could do this and that. And that's when my life started to change. I do want to ask you something real quick. I think it's something that's really, really important. I think you mentioned about your childhood. And I think that's one of the great things about your parents and what they did to you that allowed you to be who you are today, is they allowed you to be yourself. They created a safe place for you to grow and to be yourself and be who you are. I know for me, based on the conversation I have a lot of Polynesians and people in general, sometimes, some families are very strict, very traditional, and the parents would tell you and kind of dictate what your life is going to be and how to live your life. So do you see that a lot within the Polynesian, like with your friends or just people in general? Like it's not really the parents they're not really allowing the kids to kind of like be themselves and make their own decisions in life when it comes to their natural gifts and talents and what they want to do. Do you see that a lot within like with your friends, circle of friends, and within the people you see?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the biggest topics that we do discuss with a lot of teens here.
Mhm.
And of course with some of my good friends as well too, because they always say there wasn't their parents or families didn't give them room or uh, a safe space to be themselves, where they had that pressure to, oh, I want you to be this, I want you to be this, I want you to do this. It was like molding them to be something that they weren't. Um, yeah, I feel like it's a huge thing in our culture, like the expectations of what their parents or what their families want their daughter, their son, or their niece or their nephew to be.
Yeah. And I'm just interested to hear what are those expectations that you hear from a lot of people, like what they want them to be, if you want to just kind of list them.
A lot of the ones that I hear is like, oh, I want you to be a lawyer, I want you to be a doctor, or I hear sometimes like girls telling me, oh, their families want them to get married and they want them to get married to this certain family. They want them to be this type of girl. Like, and of course, when I mean this type of girl, being Tongan, we all have the understanding of nofolele,
Yeah.
like don't go out, like sleep
Yeah.
at a certain time, don't ever you're a tahine nofomao,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of high expectations. So we always talk about it all the time. Like it's like we giggle about it.
I know that's something I always hear a lot. So I want to ask your opinion if there is women out here that's watching this and they are going through this, I guess, scenario where all these expectations they place upon them and then all given room to kind of grow and live a normal life and be themselves, experience life. Because I feel like I think you said something that was really important, like experiencing things. I feel like sometimes we shelter kids too much, if you know what I mean. That we could, like a lot of girls, no out, stay stay at home. But I feel like that, it's good to allow people to go and experience things. You meet new people, you learn new things. Like you said, like who you are today came from all the experiences that you went through of doing different things and meeting new people. And that's just part of life and part of the natural, I guess, evolution of us to grow to be the best version of ourselves. And the fact that we're not allowing kids to experience, and of course I understand, but I also understand where they come from, parents. Like why they have all those strict rules, because they don't want to, something happen to their daughter. I know. I mean, I understand that as a, they don't want something bad happen to their daughter, and get pregnant early. So I know why they have all these rules. But I feel like, if all those parents are listening, I feel like sheltering kids too much can also hinder their growth and experience in life, because that's part of life, is going through those experiences and then learning from every situation. So I'm interested to hear your opinion. Like, if there's somebody out there right now, like a Polynesian woman that's stuck, like, what would you like, and do you have any advice for them to kind of like not to communicate that with their parents, or like, do you need to have any solution or what, like, perspective towards that?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, always remember our parents want the best for us. And sometimes that best might not be our best, but that's okay. So what needs to be implemented is just more like talanoa. Like, you have to sit down with your parents, and I'm telling you now, it can be uncomfortable and it can be very hard, especially when you want to talk about things that you're passionate about or things that that's going to be very out of zone for your parents. But just always have that understanding that your parents love you. And I feel like their form of love is stronger than your best friends, like, like close peers around you, because they want the best for you. And then when you tell them what you want to do with the understanding and openness of hearing what they're going to say, because there has to be room for space between you two, because they're going to say something and you can't be stubborn and be like, oh, but it's like this. But understanding where they're coming from, so then when you say what you need to say, they can be understanding. So that needs to be created, that space. And just not having that fear of just telling your parents what you want to do, because I feel like when you don't communicate this with your parents are going, or the people that you stay with and that have taken care of you, your grandparents or your aunts or uncle, they're going to continue to put that pressure on you, because you haven't spoken, you haven't said what's from your heart. But once you do these things, I feel like it's gonna create room for you to be more yourself, which is very important.
No, that's absolutely true. I've had a lot of people on my, a lot of guests on my show, and then they talk about that. That's one of the most, I guess, talked about topics we always talk about in every podcast. Because everybody on my podcast, we're all, like you said, we're all unique individuals. We're all unique in who we are, what we want to do for our life, and that's always one of the hardest things, is to communicate that with their parents, with who they want to be and what they want to do. But they always share something that I always remember. They always say, you never know what your parents are going to react until you tell them. Because in our mind, like you said, the fear of rejection, in our mind, we're like, oh, they're going to say no. So, regardless of what I say, but you'd be surprised if you really, like you said, communicate with them, then you'll definitely be surprised. Like, even though it may not happen overnight, it's not going to happen in one conversation. It's not going to be just a magic, have one conversation, everything. It's like you said, multiple conversations. But I do believe, like what you said, at the end of the day, like, our parents want us to be happy, and they love us only the way they know how. And for everybody out there that have challenges for their parents, and like you said, like, you have to understand where they're coming from. And I used to be that way, where I used to get upset when my parents didn't understand what I wanted for my life, and that sometimes I created some kind of resentment between me and my parents. But then when I started maturing in life, I realized, oh wait, like, my parents grew up in a different time, and they were taught different things when they were raised by their parents. So they're only teaching me and showing me what they know how. So it's my responsibility to take that and build off that, build a foundation off that. And when I started talking to my parents, and and then just communicating with them, with my elders in my family, of what I wanted, even though it was difficult a little bit, but we finally got to a point. Okay, now my family just lets me. Oh, that's just Will. Now they know how I am, because I've now communicated that. Because before it was like it was awkward, but now they realize, okay, that's just who I am, because I've already told that, and that's one of the hardest things as Polynesians. So yeah, for everyone out there, yeah, just communicate, understand where your parents are coming from, understand they have a different point of view and they see things differently than us, because they grew up at a different time. It's just, I think you said it the best. It's just the understanding and creating that room. So just talk to your parents, voice them who you are, because if you never say anything, they will never know. and they'll keep, like you said, they'll keep putting those expectations on you. So you have to be able to speak up. And also, just by the way, just throw it out there, speak up in a nice, healthy, and respectful way. Don't go out there. I don't want you guys to go out there and argue and create some conflict between you and your parents. Not like, just be respectful and communicate in a healthy way. I know you mentioned about fear. Talking about fear, the fear is all we have. I just want to ask people, like, personally, like, did you have any kind of like moments in your life that you felt that fear and you had doubt? Because I know I know sometimes people look at you, oh man, Diamond Langi, she just got it, no, courageous. She probably never went through any kind of doubt, adversity in her life. But I always tell people, no matter how, when you see people that are doing really, really well, it's just, but you see who they are now, but you don't see the journey of what they went through. Can you talk about moments in your life that that when you start feeling that doubt within yourself, or just not questioning your confidence within yourself, but then just finding a way to overcome it and keep going in life? Can you talk about that? Or maybe when you lost, or maybe when you failed to something, you failed for the first time, and that was the first time you didn't achieve something you wanted, and how did you deal with that fear and that failure?
Yeah, so I experience fear all the time, but in different levels. Some fears are extremely high at its peak, and in some fears, she's like a little pinch or a little tickle. But some of my biggest moments of fear, oh my gosh, I remember I was in LA at the time, and I kept having this dream, like, that I had to go to LA. And I was like, okay. And the dream was around the animated film Moana. So I kept having this dream, and I'm like, why am I having this dream? I was like, okay, cool. So I was living in Sydney at the time. I remember packing my bags, and I just moved to LA. So yeah, feel like David. So when I was in LA, I ended up getting an opportunity to be a journalist.
Okay.
And oh my gosh, I remember it was my third gig. So the first two gigs, I interviewed musicians. And I remember my third gig, I just remember them telling me, okay, so we've gotten access to the Moana cast. And I was like, okay, like, that's so nice. And they're like, okay, so tomorrow, literally, this was the conversation. Okay, tomorrow you're gonna be interviewing the cast and the directors. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I don't come from a journalist background.
Yeah.
And I just was like, I just was like, oh my gosh, like, this is going to be challenging, because you have the best of the best reporters and journalists on set getting ready to be there with the directors. But I remember, like, experiencing that, and I just kept moving forward. And I just was like, you know what, Diamond, you are right. You don't come from a journalist background, but you know what is going to be different about you? You're Pacific Islander.
Yeah.
And the movie, the animated film, is around your people. This is a plus for you. So I started saying positive affirmations for myself. And I remember going into the interview, I was still incredibly nervous, but I remember there was a special moment with the directors where we started to talk about Kava, and I felt I was in a safe space. And I was like, yeah, I was like, you know what, like, it's okay, Diamond, you're in a safe space. And it's quite interesting, because I remember, like, I was quite shocked, because we had to do press conference the next week, and the top of the top news networks were there. And I remember the host saying, okay, we're only going to be taking 3 questions, but the room was filled with about 200 people. So only 3 people could ask questions. And I remember I was wearing an orange outfit, an orange dress, and the directors, Ali, Dwayne, the music producers were sitting on the board. And I remember them like, oh, raise your hand. And I don't even know what question I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Raise your hand and ask a question. And I was like, okay. But I remember everyone's hands were going up. So they were like, okay, the first person went ask the question, the second person. And I remember just raising my hand. And remember there's so many people there. And I just remember the lady like, okay, the young lady with the orange dress. And I remember getting up and Ron and John, the directors, it was so hilarious. So I got up and then like they were like adjusting their glasses and they were like, "Is that Diamond?" And I remember like ABC News and Fox were like looking at me like, "Who is this girl? We've never ever seen her before." So, but I felt like that connection came because just understanding you're in a safe space, you know. So that was a high peak fear. Another high peak fear for me was just recently when I was applying for a scholarship for it's the top acting school here in Auckland, in New Zealand actually.
Mhm.
And my audition was on a Friday. And I remember calling and I said, on actually emailing, I was like, that's how fearful I was that I had to talk myself out of it. So I messaged the receptionist, I was like, I'm sorry, I can't make it to, oh my God, I hope they don't watch this. Like, actually, it's okay because I'm probably gonna bring it up in class anyways. But I messaged her and I was like, "Oh, I'm not feeling too well. I can't make auditions. I can't come in for audition on Friday." And then she's like, "No worries. There's an open space. Someone dropped out for Saturday if you want to come." But I was 4 hours outside of Auckland because I decided to take a little trip.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are you doing, Diamond? Like, why are you running away from this?
Yeah.
Like, why are you so scared? And that's the highest fear I've ever experienced was that. It's like,
Mhm.
why are you running away? So I ended up messaging her back and I was like, okay, yes, I'll take the Saturday slot. And I drove 4 hours back to Auckland. And I was still very nervous, but what I did to create a safe space for me was I wore power color
Okay.
to give me that confidence. I did
Yeah.
a lot of positive affirmations,
Hmm.
and then I just had to remind myself like, what are you gonna lose from this? Like, if you don't get in, at least you said you actually went and you tried out.
Yeah.
So don't be so hard on yourself, Diamond. So yeah, when an auditioned, I was still a bit nervous, but I was like, you have to do what you have to do. But it was an extreme high fear for me. But I think just learning to face it and not run away. So that's why I tell people now. It's like when people are like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so fearful." That experience that I had from that, I always tell people, don't run because there's something. It's probably the adversary trying to block you because they're gonna see you're going to get to where you're going to get and you're going to help so many people, and the adversary doesn't want that. They don't want you to be a light. They don't want you to help. They don't want that. So what is that blockage? So don't run from it. So for me, it's always like, okay, I'm going to give it a go, do my best, build that self-confidence within myself, and then just try. And yeah. It's different facets. Like I experience it on a daily where it's like I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. Even with interviews, Will, like I still get nervous because it's like you're interacting with a different personality, a
Hmm.
different energy. And there's different voices that you hear in your head. But what's important is you need to tell yourself, just be who you are. That's all that you can do. And if people like you, they like you. And if they don't like you, they don't like you, and that's okay.
No, it's I like I like what you said. It's something you deal with every single day, but you just learn how to overcome it because you've kind of gone through that whole life. And it's funny, like you talk about being nervous. Like for me, by nature I'm a natural introvert. Like for me, I like to stick to myself and stick to myself. So speaking and even doing like even this podcast right now, like I get chills inside. I'm like I'm scared, but for me, like I always have to focus like what I want to do for my life. I gotta focus on the goal and where I'm trying to go, and that helps to overcome my fear. But I always hope, yeah, I'm, even though a lot of people see me on speaking a lot, so they think I'm a natural, like, outgoing extrovert personality, but but I'm actually an introvert. Like, I like to stick to myself, but I also love connecting with people. I also love empowering people, and I don't realize in order to do that, I have to speak. And also, she said, about fear, about running. I think one of my favorite quotes when it comes to fear is like, fear, the acronym for fear, like FEAR, is face everything and run, or you can see it as face everything and rise. So you can
love
just change
that.
it. You just change the way you see it. You can face everything and run away from it, or you can just face everything and rise from it.
Yes, I love that. Thank you for sharing that. Will noted.
Of course, I'm got the quotes, and I got the quotes.
Yes.
No, I do want to ask you. I want to talk about failure because I think that's one of the biggest things I see within people, not only people in general, but a lot of Polynesians, like, they struggle with their relationship with failure, and I also understand sometimes that can come from a culture of the expectations they place on you, not only for the men, for a lot of women. And if you're a Polynesian woman, this. I remember doing a podcast with Lanu Faletau. I don't know if you know her. She's in New Zealand as well.
Yes.
She said something. I remember I asked her the question, what's the hardest thing of being a Tongan woman? And her response to that was, the hardest thing about being a Tongan woman is that you get judged and shamed for everything you do, no matter how small it is. Like, you just so much criticism because of the expectations. So I do understand that sometimes Polynesian women and men also growing up within the Polynesian dynamic of a household and tradition, that we're so afraid of making mistakes, because we don't want to disappoint our families. We don't want to disappoint our parents. We don't want to disappoint our community. We don't want to disappoint our church. So people build this relationship with failure. And I see this a lot with my younger cousins. It's like, they're so afraid of making mistakes, and they're just so afraid of failure that I had to convince them, look, like, failure is a part of life. You're going to make mistakes. That's where we learn the most. And there's no such thing as perfectionism. There is no one in this world is perfect. No one. So, and then, like you said, like, I always tell you have to change your relationship with failure, like, just like fear. For me, when I used to fail, I used to feel bad about myself, and I used to give up. But now I've changed my relationship and definition of failure. For me, it means if I make a mistake, that means that there's something for me to improve. And I think you said that early in the podcast, that when you fail, to you, it means that there's something you can learn. You learn from something. So, can you share some failures in your life, and also, what was like your biggest failure in your life, but ended up being like the biggest blessing and biggest lesson to you, and that's where you grew the most? Because I feel like a lot of people need to hear this. A lot of people need to hear this to let everybody know it's okay if you make a mistake. It's okay if you fail. It's not the end of the world. You're still as you don't give up on your worth and value and what your future is. It's just a part of the journey as we learn to become who we are. So if you can talk about that real quick.
Yes, so I've had many failures, which I'm very thankful for. And I think one of the biggest ones were that really impacted me was I ran for presidency again for high school.
Okay.
And it was quite interesting. So it was me against three other guys who were running for president. And
yeah,
I was so passionate about it because, like, there was so many things that I wanted to bring into the school. And the slogan that I used, because Obama was running for presidency as well too at the same time. So I was doing, like, how he had the posters, and it was like the colored that was on his face. It would be like blue, red, white. Do you remember seeing?
Yeah.
So I did a lot of those posters as well, because you could do a slogan, or you could do like a theme. And at the same time, Beyonce also dropped her Sasha Fierce album. So it was a connection with both. But the message I wanted to really implement when I was running for presidency was change, and for colored people to be more accepted in the high school that I went to. And I remember, so it was 4, then it dropped to the top 2, and it was me against this guy. And what was so hilarious was because at his middle school, he was the president.
Okay.
And our middle schools were competitive against each other. So when we ran against each other, we were like already aware of who was who. And it was very competitive. And I remember going into the room and they closed it. And what was hard was because they announced it live on the intercom.
Okay, got you,
So
got
they're
you.
like, okay, who won Senate? Like different positions. And I remember when it came to who won presidency, and I just remember like, because you're in the dark and my eyes were closed, and I just remember saying, please say my name, please say my name, please say my name. And they said his name.
Yeah.
And my heart sunk because I was like, I wanted it so bad. I
Yeah.
wanted to win president so bad. Like I wanted that more than anything. And I remember like when the doors open, I just felt disappointed. I didn't want to see anybody. I just wanted to go home. But my parents were there, which was so cute. Like I just was like, face it. And I just remember people like coming to me and they're like, I'm so sorry. Like I'm so sorry you didn't win. But what was very important for me was even though I didn't win, I wanted to go acknowledge the person who did win and say
Yeah.
congratulations. Because from a very young age, I've always believed, even when we don't get things that we want, things happen the way that was supposed to happen. And I remember just going, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't win. And I just was so down. But what was quite interesting from that experience was I found out 2 weeks later I had to move back to New Zealand.
Yeah.
So I couldn't even be in America for my senior year. But I just remember like looking up and I'm like, man, God works in very mysterious ways. Like very mysterious ways.
Yeah.
But the experience for me, like, just helped me grow as a person. Where now it's like if I don't win something, I'm not down like that experience that I went through. I'm like, okay, yeah. So what's next? Just giving room for yourself to breathe, especially if it's your like a big failure for you. Give room for yourself to breathe and just have the understanding like there's always something else for you. Like, just because you don't win something, there's always something else for you. But what's more important is the lesson that's learned from failure. Because it helps you like grow tremendously. But yeah, yes, I experienced that, like being down, not talking to anyone. Like I literally felt like that my heart was broken. Like I got out of like a long-term relationship. Yeah. So, and I experienced different failures here and there still to this day. But it's how you overcome them. It's what is very important and how you talk to yourself. Like not saying like, oh my gosh, you didn't get it because you were not worthy. You didn't get, but changing that narrative is like, you didn't get it because there's something else for you and that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just having the healthy relationship with yourself as well too is important when you go through failures.
I know, and and if anybody, yeah, I'm glad. Thank you for sharing that. By the way, thank you. Yeah, for everybody that's watching, yeah, like I know that's one of the things I see a lot within the Polynesian community. Young kids is just their relationship failure is very negative, but they don't realize. I always have to remind them like, it's part of life. It happens. Everybody's gonna go through it, but always like I truly believe in this. Everything happens for a reason. I truly believe it. God has a plan for all of us, and we're never ahead, we're never behind. We're exactly where we need to be. So, so if you're failing, a lot of times one of the hardest things about failing, because in today's culture of social media, when we fail, it's more public and more compounded because now you're just comparing. Most of us, we compare ourselves. Oh my God, just failed, but this person is ahead. This person, no, it's just you failed. Yeah, I'm telling you, it happened for a reason. Learn from it and just move on. And then once you kind of like you said, change the way you see and how you deal with it, then it becomes an easier way to keep moving in life. I do want to talk about because something that relates to failure, rejection. I'm sure for you, all the things you've accomplished in your life. Also, but there was also a lot of things, like a lot of opportunities or gigs. I know you talk about gigs. that you applied for, you wanted, but then you got rejected. And then I think that's something I always want to talk. I always have to talk to people all the time. Look, when you apply for different opportunities, but just be ready that it's not going to happen. It won't happen all the time. You will be rejected. Especially if you want to go. You already know this. Especially if you want to go to the entertainment business. You're going to get rejected. You're going to try for roles, apply for roles. You're going to be rejected. Even for me, for my podcast, I reach out to as many people as I can, and some people say yes, and some people just say no, and that's okay, and that is absolutely okay. That's absolutely okay. So, can you talk about that? Just going through in life, and then getting, going through your rejections and having roles or having things you applied for, but you didn't get it, but just learning how to overcome all those rejections you went through in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was heavily doing pageants and being in the modeling scene, I remember a lot of the things I would hear back was, oh, you're not skinny enough, or you're not the right look. There's just different ways things were communicated to me, or your future's a bit strong, or we're trying to find where we can fit you in. That's why we couldn't take you on our books, or that's why we couldn't sign you, or that's why you couldn't run for a certain position. But for me, when I have a dream about it, even if I get a lot of rejection, because the beautiful thing about us Pacific Islanders is that we're great navigators. It's in us. It's in our ancestors. Our ancestors were great navigators. So when I get rejected, to me, it just hypes me up more, and it brings that fire out of me. So I was like, so it's like I look at it almost like we're in a ship, or like in a canoe, and like when rejection hits, it's just like, okay, so we turn here, and that's gonna be a no. So it's like just finding your way and how you're gonna get to where you're gonna get to. But I remember having that dream, like you need to run for Miss New Zealand, and the whole reason was why to run for Miss New Zealand is because I wanted to inspire our young women, like, yeah, you can do Miss Helala, or you can do, Miss Samoa. You can do different facets of different platforms for pageantry, but you can also run for Miss America. You can run for Miss Australia. You can run for Miss New Zealand. Like, why can't you do these things? Like, like I think what's important is not to limit ourselves. And I got a lot of rejection building up to when I was running for Miss Universe New Zealand. And I remember people just telling me, like, no, there's never been a Tongan girl that's won it. Like, it's gonna be hard. Like, they're not gonna take you seriously. And for me, I'm like, okay, that's what they have to say. But I really dreamt about it. And I think what's important with rejection is that's their point of view. And whatever they have to say, that's okay. But take it with love, but don't take it in a negative way. But also, you need to remind yourself, like, if you have a calling, and especially if you dreamt about it, because I feel like God gives you little messages, which comes to you in dreams, like, give it a go and try. Even if you're the only Polynesian that's there, like, do your best, because, like, I feel like it's gonna take you to a different level. And I had to face that a lot when running for Miss New Zealand. It was just all of these different, like, things that were just like, nope, nope, nope. And especially trying to get sponsorship. Because people are like, how are you gonna win Miss New Zealand? Like, there's just no way. Like, maybe, like, go back and give Miss Helala a try or something, But for me, it's like I dreamt about it and put a lot of work and effort, and of course, study. You have to study what you're gonna get into. And rejection is a beautiful thing. Like we touched based on with failure, like, you have to also build a healthy relationship with rejection as well, to have that understanding that it's not me. It's their point of view, it's their opinion, but that whatever they have to say doesn't mean that's me.
No.
So yeah.
I love what you said, that we got all those things, and I think that's something that you have to realize as an individual. And I think you said it really, really early in the podcast, not everybody is going to like you. Because sometimes I think we live in our own bubble. Oh my God, I'm such a great person. I'm so everybody should love me. I think that we sometimes we live in our own bubble of how we grew up, and then you probably grew up in a loving family, had always had great friends, and then you finally go outside to the real world, and you realize there's a lot of people, a lot of people out there that won't like you just because it's you. And I think that's one of the hardest things to deal with when you go out there in the real world, especially like I say, especially if you're a good person, like you're a really good person, you do great things, have a good heart, and then you're just like, why are these people so mean to me?
Absolutely.
But I want to tell everybody, like, that's just life. You're just, not everybody's going to like you, and just because somebody doesn't like you does not diminish your own worth and your value and potential in this world. So just want to share that with everybody. I want to ask you, can you talk about your pageant journey? Because I feel like that's a big part of your life, and I know a lot of people will be interested to hear. I know I've had a couple pageant people, guests on my podcast, and they share their journey. So can you talk about that? What inspired you to start on your pageant journey? Because I know there's a lot of girls out here that do want to go into pageants, but they're just, like you said, people have told them, you're too, you're not, you're ugly, you're not beautiful enough, your body's isn't this way. So a lot of them are stopping themselves from working towards something that can really, they could possibly achieve, and also can change their life. You never know unless you try something. So I just want to encourage all the girls out there. So can you talk about your journey with the pageant industry, being in the pageant? How is it like being in real life in the pageant? And sometimes people look at from the outside and think, oh, pageant, that's easy. You just walk up the stage and walk around. That's guys don't go through any struggle. There's no adversity. That's the easiest thing to do. So, but then when I talk to a lot of people, there's a lot of things that happen, a lot of things that you guys go through that a lot of people don't know that happens behind the scenes. So, but if you don't mind sharing your journey with everybody.
Yeah, for sure. So what's very interesting, because I come from a performing arts background, so pageants wasn't in my radar. And I remember I was modeling for a woman named Bo, and I remember she approached my uncle. So I got the modeling gig because of my uncle, and then she approached my uncle again, like, I actually am very interested in being a sponsor for Diamond for Miss Helala.
Yeah.
And then my uncle's like, oh yeah, you can talk to her. I don't think it's her scene, because she's more of like an artist, but just give it a go. And I remember she approached me, and I kind of giggled at first because I didn't see myself doing pageants. So I was like, oh, okay, like this is something different. My parents were like, oh, like if you want to give it a go, like you can go. But it was the conversations, like it wasn't something we took seriously. So my first pageant that I did was Miss Helala, and I'm not going to lie, it was the most beautiful experience. I know everyone has different experiences from when they joined Miss Helala, but my year, like, I'm not going to flex, was the best. Because social media wasn't a huge thing at that time, like going live. Of course, pictures and taking little videos, but you know how going live is a huge thing now. But in my time, it wasn't like going upload guitar or like different. That's what it was, And I remember it was so funny. I remember one of the ladies, like, I remember she was saying, because I was me and this other contestant, her name is Sue Lobo, and we still talk to today. I remember one of the ladies saying, man, those girls are just goofy girls, like, because we were not competitive, like everything was just like fun and games, like trying to connect with the girls. And I'm very thankful that was my experience for Miss Helala, like. And I also got to see, it was my first time getting to see like some contestants who did take it seriously, who who had been preparing for a period of time. And I was like, oh wow, like it was a different angle that I got to see. And it sparked a interest for me. So I was like, okay. I came third runner up in Miss Helala, and I was like, okay, I got approached to represent Tonga internationally for a pageant called Face of Beauty,
Okay.
and it was going to be held in Thailand. And it was my first time actually traveling overseas. I mean, of course, like I mean, like by myself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I was so nervous because I was like, oh my gosh, I've never been to Asia, and I've never, don't know too much about Thailand. And I was competing against, I think it was 85 countries.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a huge turn in my life because
Mm-hmm.
I feel a lot of my experiences came from this. So my parents couldn't come with me at the time because we couldn't afford it. Trips to Thailand was extremely expensive because it was summertime.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's trying to go to Thailand, of course, to go to the beach and to vacation time. My parents couldn't afford it. And I remember talking to my mom and I was like, I'm nervous. Like, the contestants have their families here. And, I do miss you guys. I'm homesick because I'm extremely close to my parents. But I just remember telling myself, like, just give it a go. Like, do your very best and God will do the rest. And out of 85 countries, because I was representing Tonga, um, I'm very thankful that God chose me to win that title, because it helped.
Nice.
That really helped me a lot. So that was
Mm-hmm.
my first international win, and it just sparked this different side of me that I haven't experienced before, and it just made me want to do more. So after that pageant, I competed in another pageant in Fiji, which was Miss Supermodel. This was more of finding a top supermodel. But I was like, just give it a go. It was hard because like you really had to watch your physique with this one. Like, gotta train, and like being Tongan, our guy is not the healthiest.
Nothing nutritious.
You know what I mean? Like, so almost like, they're like, oh, okay, you have a set meal prep, like this is what you should be eating. And it was just hard because sometimes like I don't even like, oh my gosh, Diamond, but there was just sometimes I was just like, man, like to Gaia keep wakatunu, or like just like you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like we
yeah,
kind of
yeah, yeah.
crave our food. So it was so hard, especially because the pageant I did before, like we did a lot of traveling and having eating like limits or anything like that wasn't required. When we travel to all these different places, it was just guy and then you can exercise. But this one was like exercise and you got to eat the right food. So I was like, malope, I didn't pongia. And it was so nice. It was my first time being in Fiji and, interacting with the Fijians, seeing the culture, eating the food. And I loved it. I came third runner up from that. And then I got approached to do another international pageant. It was called Miss Earth, and was to also represent Tonga. And I was like, okay, I'll give it a go. I've always been interested in the planet, and I've always had a passion for it. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna give it a try. And this is the first time I actually got to see more girls being very competitive,
Yeah.
because um, Miss Earth is moving more into like the top tiers of pageants.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely would say it's in the top 4. So I got to see everyone bring their A game, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh wow, like it was very serious. They brought a lot of people with them, like because of their wardrobe. I remember Miss Vietnam, and she's so sweet. I
Yeah.
still keep in touch with her to today. She had 25 suitcases.
Oh my Lord.
Like
Dang.
she did not come to play. Like, and it was such a beautiful angle to see this kind of light, like
Yeah.
seeing girls like really want it. And I absolutely love that experience. I think there was 90 girls that year, and I placed top 16, so which was so nice. And because people were like, "Where's Tonga?" A lot of them thought Tonga was in Africa, which I don't blame them, because I don't blame them because I know, yeah. And then they're like, "Oh, are you from Africa?" So a lot of the girls, like even the girls from Africa, were like, "Oh my gosh, you're one of us, sister!" Like I was like, "Actually, I'm from like the Pacific. I'm a Pacific Islander," so it was cute. But I remember doing, I would have to say, was probably when I did my second pageant, Miss Face of Beauty, was when I set a goal for myself. I wanted to do Miss Universe because I grew up watching Miss Universe, especially like Miss America, like they will go hard out. So from then I set a goal. And then after Miss Earth, I started moving more into my creative space. And then there was like a little like bug in my ear, like, you need to do one more, like you need to do one more pageant. And I'm like, I was so nervous, and I was like, "Ah, okay, I'm just gonna try it." And it was my first time actually not representing Tonga and actually going for Miss New Zealand. And I was like, I gotta try this out. And I was still based in Sydney because my parents still stayed there in Australia. And I remember being here, and I actually didn't tell no one. I didn't even tell my parents. But I was like, I'm just gonna give this a go. So I registered. I went to their one-on-one interviews, and I just signed the form, and I was like, I'm gonna give this a go. And I was like, I didn't even know what I was doing. I was like, oh my gosh, like no one's going to expect this. Like everyone's thinking I'm done with pageants.
Yeah.
And I just remember like this was my hardest pageant. Like it was very challenging because there was different requirements. Like we had to do a charity fundraiser. Um, we had to get judged on interviews, like open interviews and closed interviews. Also, what our profession mattered in this pageant. Also, keeping up with your physique, your eating habits was very crucial. And I remember this was probably the skinniest that I've ever been because I had to really get in shape, prepping for Miss New Zealand, because a lot of the girls were working out. And of course, um, on television, you put on 10 pounds.
Yeah.
So in order for you to look a certain weight, you actually have to drop. And it was so hard because like I touched based on like, being, I thought my experience in Fiji was challenging, but it was extremely challenging, the whole process for Miss New Zealand. And what was quite funny was people were like, "Oh my gosh, do you want to win? Like, how bad do you want?" I go, I want it bad, but I have no expectations to win. And I remember, so there was, I think it was 120, so it was 120 girls that registered and went through the whole process, and they start cutting it down. So it goes like to 80, then 60, 50. It starts to drop down. And in the final night, it was top 14, top 14, top 13. Oh my gosh, I should know this. But I remember, so from those group of girls, I remember when it came down to announcing the top 7, which was so hilarious because my mind, like on stage, I'm smiling, but my mind was not even there. Like, because I actually injured myself from rehearsal. Like, when we were coming up and down the stairs, I actually fell and hit my toe, and it bruised up, and the whole toenail was bleeding underneath.
Yeah.
So I was in extreme pain. I wasn't even thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna make top 7 or top 5. I was like, I just need to like sit down. I don't want to be standing on the floor anymore.
Yeah.
And I remember when they announced top 7, I think they called me for 6. So they're like, okay, so the contestant number 6 that will be going forth is, and then they announced me. I just remember thinking like, oh my gosh, I have to walk. So people are like, but Fabi's like all happy and all of that stuff. But in my head, I was like, oh my gosh, my foot. And then I think after that, that's when I got serious. I was like, snap out of it, because top 7, it goes to we're top 7, and then they limit it to top 5. But then I know it's the open interviews, so you get asked any question, like it could be anything. And I was really nervous about that because in the beginning, I used to struggle with answering questions. It used to be a fear of mine
Mhm.
because I was such a private person, and I had to really overcome that. So when they asked my question, I felt immense pressure, but it was almost like the survivor mode kicked in. Like that when you have so much pressure, like it kicks in, and it's like I just remember thinking in my head, like I didn't even know how I answered. I just remember going backstage and I was like, I hope I answered the question right. Like this is in front of everyone, you know what I mean? And you have
Do you remember?
only
You
one
remember?
chance.
You remember the question or
Yeah.
no?
Yeah, I did watch it, and we're live on television, so this is just like a lot of pressure. So I was like, I just hope I answered it right. And then I remember, so the top 7 girls, and then they announced the top 3. And when they announced the top 3, they called my name last. And then I just was like, oh my gosh, like we're here. Like Diamond, like we're here now. Like
Yeah.
do your best. Like regardless if you win or you lose, this is your time. And I remember just standing like everyone's like looking, and all the girls, I'm standing next to 2 other girls. And then I just remember like it was almost like a thin layer that came around me. Like I was in my own bubble. It was my
Yeah.
first time actually really experiencing this. I was just in my own little world, in my own little bubble. And people are talking, people are clapping, but it's almost to the point like you can't hear it.
Yep. 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 Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
You're in your zone. You're in your zone right now.
you're in your zone, and I just was like, oh my gosh. And I remember the host is talking, and the owner is like saying his speech, and then from there they announce who's the top 2.
Oof.
And then I'm like, okay, whatever happens, happens. And that's literally what's going through my mind. I'm like, whatever happens, happens. And I remember they said, okay, so the first girl that's going in to the top 2 is, and then they announced her. So she walked in, and then they said, and then the second person that's going in, and they announced me. So then I walked, and I felt extremely calm for some reason. I wasn't
Mhm.
nervous. I wasn't anxious. I felt a sense of peace because I was like, wow, Diamond, you've gotten this far, and what an achievement, like you know. And then I remember holding the other contestant's hand, and her eyes were sparkly. She was looking up at everyone, and she was filled with so much joy. And I loved to see that. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
it was such a blessing to have her, like, because some girls can be nervous, or because you go with
Yeah.
people's energies. And I just
Yeah.
remember holding her hands, and for some reason, naturally, I just looked down, and I was at peace with whatever they were going to tell me. Like whatever, if they announced her name or my name, I was at peace. And I remember just holding her hand, and I literally what I said under my breath was, "It's up to you, God." And it was just a very powerful moment. And I was looking down, and then when the host announced, and the next Miss New Zealand will be, and it was just a long way because he was like he's
Yeah.
trying to drive
Yeah. Yeah. The suspense.
like bring it up everyone. Yeah, it's like, and then I remember he just said my name, and I just was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
like the first thing I felt was I have a lot of responsibility that I need to uphold because I had many conversations with God. I'm like, if you were to be, if I were to be given this platform, I hope that I can fulfill all the things that I know that's in my heart. But most importantly, like what I need to do to uplift the Polynesian and Pacific community here in Aotearoa, which was fundamental for me. And I knew when they announced my name, it was joy, but at the same time for me was okay. Like I was already clocking in what I need to do. Like people would be like, "Oh, I need to relax now. I won," but for me it was like, oh, there's so many things I need to do, people I need to network with, things that need to be put in place to help our people here in New Zealand. And I'm really, really thankful because this brought out, I feel like every experience brings out a different you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
The competition was held in Atlanta, Georgia. The host was Steve Harvey. And I was nervous to meet Steve Harvey. But, you know, I think the experience taught me was we're all the same.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it doesn't matter what levels and where
Mm-hmm.
God puts you, we're all the same. And yeah, I've learned so much and grown tremendously from it. Like from the hardship. I think people say like, oh my gosh, like your journey from Miss Universe must have been like glitz and glam. I'm like, no, it
Yeah.
was one of my hardest experiences, and I've cried so much. Like I think that's the most I've ever cried, just because like you know, it wasn't easy. I had to put a like fundraiser together, like raise a certain amount, like learning how to do decor. You know what I mean? All of these different
Yeah.
things, like styling food, like getting alcohol food license. Like I was just like, it was so intense. Like, but I'm really thankful for it. I feel like God knows when to humble us, you know, and
Yeah.
He knows what to give us because you know, nothing that He ever gives us is ever too much. We can handle it if we focus.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are my experiences with pageants.
Nice, man. Man, you know, it's funny, like as you were sharing your story, and then you were talking about the like you were singing the stage and like the suspense. Like I felt the suspense too. I felt like even though I knew the outcome of the story, but the way you narrated it, I felt like I was waiting for the risk. Like I felt like I felt like I was there just listening. Okay, who's gonna be the Miss Universe? So
Yeah.
man, that was so if there's some girls out here that's watching this and they you know they have aspirations to you know to be in beauty pageants, like you know what kind of advice would you give them, and as far as like what they need to do, prepare mentally, physically, because as you're talking, like you realize that, I mean, if you realize as I was listening, like there's more to beauty pageant than just the physical. You know,
Mm,
there's the mental. I see, like you just talk about the mental preparation. You have to do the emotional preparation too. Like you have to be really zoned in and focused. And I noticed that, you know, as you went up in different levels, like you had to be on your A game, and you couldn't
yeah.
just like go there and hope for things to happen. You really had to prepare yourself. So if any girls out here that wants to be into that, you know, what's like, I guess what's the top three like, advice would you give them, um, if that's something they want to do for their life?
I would definitely have to say is be yourself. And I know you like that's so lightweight, but
Yeah,
there's so much depth into that. And what I
yeah,
mean by that is because naturally sometimes when you're in a room filled with girls and beautiful, like beautiful women to be
yeah,
exact, like naturally sometimes you get into the mindset of comparison, like, oh my gosh, she has like better hair than me, or oh my gosh, she has more fuller lips. But
yeah.
you need to look at yourself and be comfortable with that, you know,
Hmm.
and have that understanding. No one's the same, and no one's the same as you. Like
Yeah.
probably girls are looking at you and be like saying the exact same thing too. So changing the mindset is extremely important. And I say this all the time, being kind, because there's a lot of back talk. Like people say all of this stuff. Like there's no need for that. There's no and especially, and I'm saying this coming from competing in Miss Universe, I didn't have to experience that because Venezuela, Puerto Rico, Colombia, they're not worried about what dress is she wearing. They're more, I want to win. Like they're in their own bubble. They're
Yeah.
not worrying about if you placed first in this section, or what they're worried about is I need to make sure I'm eating right. I need to make sure I'm getting up early. I need to make sure I'm looking the part, answering the right questions. Who do I need to talk to get this interview? They're focused on the prize, the A game. And I feel like sometimes we can lose that, and we're focused on everything else that's happening, the noise. You're
Yeah.
focusing on the noise, and sometimes that that brings out a character of you that's not you, a bitter you,
Mhm.
you know. So be yourself, be kind, which is so important, and also take care of yourself. And what I mean by taking care of yourself is doing things that is good for your soul. So for me, prayer was very important, affirmations. And I know some people are like, oh, where can I find these affirmations? There's podcasts. Like if you're on Spotify or Apple iTunes, like you can just look up positive affirmations, and there's different ones that you can click on. And you need to hear those like things that to fill up your soul, like to fill your cup, to be exact,
Yeah.
because it helps bring out the best version of yourself. And the last one I would have to say is bring your A game. Like, don't play safe. I know, especially with us being, Polynesian, being Tongan, it's like, hey, don't be uhaiki. Like, be humble, be humble, be humble.
Yeah.
That's like in our DNA. It's important to be humble, but it's also good to bring your A game as well too, and don't be afraid to be the best.
Yeah.
And to know that you're the best. Don't be afraid to be that. You can still be humble and still be the best.
Yeah. No, I love what you said. And I think you said something when you were talking about your when you're talking about I guess when you were down to the top 3, and then you told yourself, look, you know what, no matter what happens, you have no expectations to win. I'm just happy I'm here. And I feel like I think that's one of the biggest life lessons I've learned in life is like do my best, but don't expect anything. Just give
Right.
everything you have. Like, if you want, like I said, like when you like be kind, just be kind to everybody. Do your best, help everybody, but don't expect anything out of it. And I think because a lot of times we fall into like disappointment, and sometimes we fall into depression or mental health issues is because we always expecting things to happen. But then the thing is,
Absolutely.
the problem is that life life never happens, or we're never going to achieve everything we want in our life. So it's better, just like you said, just do your best, but don't expect. If it happens, great. If it doesn't happen, then God has a different plan for you. He's just redirecting you to something else that's better for your life. And I loved when you said that. And competition, I think that's one of the biggest things I want to learn, because you have, because one thing I realized as you progress in higher forms of success or levels in life, the competition level is much more competitive as you rise up in life. And I know sometimes we have the Polynesian like island mindset, chill, relax. No, like when you want to be like when you're competing and moving up in life, you have to realize like the opportunities that you want that are rare at the top. Everybody wants that same opportunity.
Yeah,
Everybody is
absolutely.
pursuing it. So what you're not doing, somebody else is doing. Things you're not willing to put in and the effort you're willing to put in, that somebody else is doing it because they actually want it for themselves. So that's something I just want to put out there, compete. And then I think you said the humble mentality. I think I had a podcast. I think that I talked about that discussion with somebody else. Sometimes that growing up that being humble, that mindset kind of sometimes like stops us from actually um, putting in more or pursuing our worth in life, because I remember growing up, um, growing up in my family, my dad will always tell me, mui fafitai. Fafitai be mau, just be grateful for what you have, be grateful for what you have. And I remember growing up, I used to have that mentality, oh, just be grateful. I used to be afraid to ask for more, when you like, when they have food and then you eat and then you want to, like, I used to be afraid, can I get a second plate, please?
Yeah.
You're afraid to ask. I remember going to come to America for lunch, right? And I'll eat in a cafeteria, and then I didn't know you can get seconds, but I was like, I'll eat, and then and then my friends were like, hey, why don't you just go grab another plate? And it's just funny, like I just felt uncomfortable asking for more, because I just
Right.
been taught that just appreciate and what you have. And like you said, there's nothing wrong with being humble, um, But like I said, but you also, be humble. But at the end of the day, you do deserve the best. And if you want the best, go out there and be the best. There's nothing wrong with that. So when you finally became, I'm just interested, like the aftermath. Okay, so once you won it, how did your world change from that? Because I'm sure, like it was, like you said, there's a lot of responsibility on you now. So I'm just interested to hear, once you finally became, when you won that pageant, how did your world change? And then, because I'm sure people probably saw you differently now. Now you actually won it. I'm just interested to hear the people that were the naysayers. I'm just interested to hear the people that told you that you couldn't do it. Did they ever come to you? Hey, like, change. Oh, you did it. Sometimes the people that tell you can't do it, but then when you win, then all of a sudden they're your biggest supporter. So I'm just interested to hear how your life changed and when you finally won it after.
Yeah, so I actually didn't have a break. So right when I won, and the pageant ended pretty late, and then I got home. The next morning, I had my official photo shoot to send to Miss Universe because they needed it in America, just so when they do the profile, it's already ready for each contestant that's representing which country. So it went from being able to sleep in and all those kind of things to like a routine. So I had to be up early. I had like interviews basically every day, going on different television shows, talking about things that I was passionate about, my advocacies, working with different charities. So it started to become more on the responsibilities of being Miss New Zealand,
Yeah.
And one of my key focuses was to visit schools. So I ended up visiting so much schools and talking with students, especially with a lot of Pacifica students, because I wanted to really understand what was going in the education system and having that understanding of what's happening also in their households, because New Zealand has one of the highest teenage suicide rates in the world.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is our people, And visiting all these different schools, talking to these students, like really made me feel some type of way. And, I met with different politicians on how we can create a space for people who want to go and talk about things that they don't feel comfortable talking about. I'm so thankful that our Prime Minister Jacinda put a funding aside specifically just for mental health to help and give back to New Zealand, because I feel like that's so crucial, and we're seeing rates going down. But I feel that needed to happen, that discussion. You needed people to step up. Doesn't matter what platform that they're in, but to raise that awareness, use that voice that they've been given with their platform that they have to talk to politicians about, look, this is what's happening, what is missing in the curriculum, that these students feel that they're not safe at school, like there's not a space for them to come to their teachers and say, I'm suffering from mental health. Why is that not being implemented? So I worked really heavily with that, and also with climate change, because of course we're seeing the rising of sea levels happening in our homelands, in Tongan and all of these islands. So I wanted to really use my platform to stay very productive in those two key points that I wanted to focus on and really give back. So my whole year was booked. I'll always say, like, I really didn't have time, like, didn't really have time to go out, like, even have social catch-ups. If I did want to catch up with friends, we had to catch up at an event.
Yeah.
But I knew that's what came. That discussion I had with God, like He gave it to me, so I didn't want to be like, oh no, I just wanted it because I wanted the publicity. No, we already made an agreement, so I really had to put in work for it. So yeah.
Okay. I do want to talk about the certain things that I know you mentioned that you wanted to talk about, and I feel like I want to get into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is climate change. I know you just talked about right now. I know for a lot of people probably watching this right now, they probably don't really put a lot of focus or attention to climate change. But climate change is something it's real. It's happening. I know sometimes we live in our bubbles in our world. We don't really think about the outside world and how that can affect the world. So I kind of want to have a little discussion with you with climate change because that's the future right there. That's what's going to happen in the future for our kids and the next generation of the people that's come up with us. So can you start off? Can you talk about climate change and what you know and share with everybody? And of course, most people are going to share today. They probably have no idea what that is. But can you share to them and why it's important to kind of give attention to climate change and of course, what can we do on an individual level? Sometimes, of course, like I can't go out there and just fix everything, but what can we do to make some kind of impact? Because I feel like, we all can make a difference, no matter how small it is, if we all come together and just put our minds together as a people, but not as a people, like the whole world, we can really tackle this. Because sometimes people feel like that's just too big of a problem to fix, but I think anything in the world can be fixed if everybody comes together. So can you kind of talk about that? Yeah.
So I started to become very vocal with climate change just a little bit before I did Miss Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I wanted to do it was because when I went and visited Tonga, there was a part of Tonga that I went and seen firsthand actually the land being immersed underwater.
Yeah.
And I just was like, it was a shock for me.
Do you remember that? You remember?
I know it's like Ba something. Is it Ba?
I try to remember right now. It's all
what
good.
Is something like? Yeah, it's Ba.
If you guys know what that is, just drop in the comments below.
Yeah, can you just like add that in real quick? Is it Ba Tangata?
I can't
think
remember.
It's something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we actually went over there to get seafood, and I remember like we're driving, and then it's just like the landscape of it looked different from different parts of Tonga that I visited, or Tonga Tapu actually. And then I was like, what is going on? And so I started to talk with the locals, and then they were saying like, the sea levels are rising. And then that's when I was like, how come this is not being discussed more? Like, how come this is not becoming a big topic? This needs to be something that should be talked about every single day. So I remember after that trip, when I came back, when I went back to Sydney, I started just sharing different things. So on my stories or on my page, like just the statistics of what's actually happening in the islands or what's currently happening with climate change, what's changing with our environment and our planet, to be exact. And people will be like, oh, I didn't know this was happening. They're like, or people will be like, oh my gosh, I was aware, and we'll build that discussion, and it was starting to be talked about more. Then when I competed and represented Tonga for Miss Earth, a lot of people who were following my journey could see that was one of my biggest advocacies, was just sharing information with what was happening in the islands and what was happening with just countries who were large contributors to climate change. Do you know what I mean? And I remember I got interviewed at Miss Universe. One of the reporters asked me what was one of my biggest advocacies, and I told her climate change. And I remember a lot of the reporters like kind of looking at me in a certain way because at the time Donald Trump was still president, but he pulled America out of the Paris Agreement. So the Paris Agreement is countries coming together and signing and agreeing that they're going to help and contribute to lessen the temperature of the heat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And helping the planet more. But Donald Trump pulled America out of that, which is extremely hard because America is a country that a lot of people look at.
Yeah.
You know? And not only that, America is a country that is a huge contributor to climate change.
Mhm.
So when I said, I remember the reporters going like, and I remember becoming, so I remember for the interview section, I got featured because everyone was talking about different things, but I came in like, and I was punching, and I wanted to make sure like, no, we're going to talk about climate change, even though we're in a country that the leader pulled them out of the Paris Agreement. But for me, what's important is I think about my children, and I
Yeah.
want them to experience snow, you know. There's a lot of places now like who had high levels of snow coming in. It's becoming less. And people are like, I wonder why this is happening. What's going on? That's because everything is becoming warmer due
Yeah.
to green gases that's being put into the atmosphere.
Hmm.
And I know sometimes like people get nervous to talk about these things because they're not familiar or it's not important, but it needs to be discussed, and little things can be implemented in how you can work towards knowing more. It's just actually just doing a little bit research, or how can I contribute to a healthier planet? Just different things that you can type on Google, and it goes into my next um, topic that I am such a huge advocate with these products. So a lot of my products that I use, well, actually all of my products that I use is eco-friendly and animal cruelty free. And I know people are like, so why did you want to do this? Is because, being a woman that comes from the ocean, a lot of our sea animals are dying, and all of our sea animals have some sort of plastic in them,
Hmm.
and we eat that, so we
Yeah.
consume it. So we
Mm.
we use these plastics, we put it back out into our um, land waste and also into our oceans, and then we don't even realize it. We're consuming it back in, and it's
Yeah.
it's not healthy. You know what I mean? So a
Hmm.
lot of the products that I use is not plastic. Um, it's biodegradable, and it's
Hmm.
just things that give back to the planet. And it's so important, especially someone that a lot of people look at, like that's in like the modeling or like the creative space, the pageant field. um a lot of things that people look at us is the glamour side.
Hmm.
So when I get new products, I tell people, oh my gosh, this is a new lipstick that I have. I make sure I let them know that it's eco-friendly, it's animal cruelty free, like. And what's very hard is a lot of the products that are in our supermarkets, or a lot of the products that are very very popular is not good. And it's hard, like,
Yeah.
because you want to be rocking the latest things, or you want to be rocking like what's popular, and it's not easy when you have public figures promoting these brands. But what's important, that whatever platform that you've been given, is to actually stand your ground and actually talk about brands that have meaning and have soul into it, and to give back, which is extremely important. So yeah, I'll pull out something, and one of my friends will be like, "What is that?" And then I'll be like, "Oh, this is like mascara, or this is like lotion." They'll be like, "Oh, I've never seen it." Or even like um, shampoo and conditioner. I know we're used to like putting in our hands and then putting it in. My shampoo and conditioner is like a bar of soap, and it was packaged in a biodegradable, yeah, a biodegradable package. You just take it out, and it's literally like soap, but it's not. It's conditioner shampoo. You just literally rub it in your hands and you massage it into your head, instead of using plastic, because the plastic is going to go back into the ocean.
Yeah.
So it's just
Yeah.
little things that you can do. It is a lot of work doing research, but I'm telling you now, it's so worth it. And I love hearing back from different people, like on social media, like, oh my gosh, thank you. Like, I tried this new oil that you recommended, and I feel actually really good that I'm not harming the planet, or I didn't have to harm an animal for me to enjoy it. So yeah.
I know you mentioned some terms I think a lot of people may not be may recognize or be aware of. So can you explain like what eco-friendly is, and then also explain animal cruelty-free. What does that mean? Because I know I know what it means, but just for somebody there's a novice, like a beginner when it comes to just listen to this right now has no idea what those means, especially when it comes to climate change. Can you explain those terms real quick to everybody?
Yeah, sure. So eco-friendly is after you use it, it can be recycled, but recycled properly. So it's biodegradable. It can go back into the soil and it doesn't harm. Where some items, like let's just say if it's a plastic bottle, yes, you can recycle it, but you can't, it's not biodegradable where you can put it down into many pieces and it goes down to it doesn't disappear. Plastic doesn't disappear. No matter how much work you put into it, it doesn't. With eco-friendly products, they do. It goes back into the earth. It can grow in with the soil, with the plants, and it can be used again. And animal cruelty free is there's some products out there on the market where it is required that they test on animals. And these animals are living creatures, of course. So they test their eyes, their skin, and a lot of them die. It was so important for me to not have products that did that because I have a dog. I have 2 dogs,
Yeah.
Louis and Apollo, and it just I can't even wrap my mind about testing products on them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking about all these little creatures that get tested on, and I'm like, is it worth it? Like, and a lot of people will be like, oh my gosh, but that is so in and it's so bougie, and like so and so posted it on their Instagram. But I'm like, but that everyone's different,
Mm-hmm.
but that doesn't align with my purpose and what I stand for as a person. So I need to bring that up. And people who do know me know my favorite brand is Chanel. I love Chanel. And I had an opportunity when one of my friends was gonna gift me a Chanel bag. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes. But I went and did research on Chanel and I was like, I cannot, like, as much as I love Chanel, like,
Yeah.
and the storytelling and how the brand got to where it got to, I can't rock Chanel because Chanel's not cruelty free. A lot of their bags is animal skin,
Yeah.
leather.
Yeah.
And, like, hopefully if it happens, I would love to have a discussion one day if it ever came up where if Chanel can actually implement, because you can use like pineapple leather, like different kind of leather, vegan
Yeah.
leather,
Yeah.
like, and I remember someone saying, did you say no to a Chanel? I said no to a Chanel because it's not cruelty free. And you know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it has to make sense. Like, I can't be telling people, oh, this and this and that. And then on the side, I'm like, oh, but I'm wearing all of this stuff that goes against everything that I'm standing for. So, yeah.
No, I feel it. I feel like I remember I just for me I don't know if Whole Foods. I'm sure, have you heard of that brand Whole Foods?
Whole Foods, yes.
Yeah. So I moved to LA last year in December, and my friends got me into the organic diet. Just buy everything you eat, make sure it's organic, and then he got me try these eggs. It's called pasture raised eggs. The difference between the pasture raised egg and normal eggs is the chickens, they let it be free. They're not, because usually when it comes to eggs, they're mass produced, so they put all the chickens in like little cages, and they're just stuck, they're just like, it's kind of cruel, but they're just stuck in the cages and then they're stressed out.
Yeah.
But these chickens, like they let it loose and they run around, they're free. So they call it pasture raised
Oh,
chickens. But it actually has more nutritious value. But it sounds kind of messed. Well, for me, it just sounds kind of messed up because like we still eat the chicken at the end of the day. But yeah, my friend got me into the pasture raised. Anything you eat, whether it's pasture raised, they're not putting the animals in boxes and like treating them like cruelty, but they actually give them like open space, and they graze and they're just living, having freedom and grow up naturally, instead
wow.
of instead of, they put all the chemicals and growth hormones they pump into these animals and they put them into like all these tight spaces and cages.
Right.
So I just, my friend just got into that, and then I know Whole Foods has a whole variety of products.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I didn't know that. I wonder, is that the same? Because I actually haven't looked up into this. Free range eggs?
I think so. I think that's what that means. Yeah. Ask about it.
Because
Yeah.
I know every country use different terms. I was like,
Different terminology.
yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
so
America calls it
pasture raised.
pasture raised.
Yeah. It just means that the animal was allowed to live a regular normal life before they process it. But instead of like being the animal cruelty they usually show in putting animals in cages and just pumping them out with hormones and everything.
Right.
So, if you never tried Whole Foods, check it out. I think ever since I started eating organic food, I just felt so much energy. I felt a lot more healthier. And like you said, a lot of the things we eat has a lot of plastic in it. It's a lot of toxins and things you don't realize, and that goes into your body and causes a lot of disease. So ever since I've gone organic, definitely made a big difference. And I know a lot of Polynesians probably listen to this like, these guys are bougie. So I know we talked about climate change. Thank you for sharing, by the way. And I think that was what you shared about Tonga. That was kind of like scary to me. Like you said that it's going underwater. Wow, I was like, wow, like dang, like sometimes I'm thinking like what's Tonga gonna look like 100 years from now, like 200 years from now, if it's already like this. So I'm just thinking about it now as you were sharing it. But I think we definitely does Tonga have like a climate change program over there? That you're aware of?
They actually do.
They do?
Yes, they actually do. I remember seeing, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, they have put in like solar systems.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so they put that. I'm not sure where they put that exactly in Tongatapu, but I've seen so much of it, and also recycling, picking up trash is so important. Also, they've lessened, if you do umu and all of that kind of stuff, they've listed that as well too. So it's good. They've actually really implemented on helping, and also because Tonga is part of the Paris Agreement as well too.
Oh, so they've taken some steps. That's good to hear. All right. Mali Tonga, Mali. I do want to go into mental health. I do want to talk about that real quick. I know you had some experience within yourself with the children that you work with in New Zealand. I actually knew that, but I know you said New Zealand has one of the highest rates of teenage suicide in the world. But I remember I did read a survey a long time ago, but it said that New Zealand was the highest, number one.
Yeah, it was at one point.
At one point in the world, at one point in time, like out of every single country in this world, they had the highest rate of suicide, for teenage suicide, which is very shocking to me. Because when I think of Polynesian people, like we're so loving, we're so loving, papa, we're so respectful. We have faith. We go to church. Like if you were to look from the outside in at a Tongan family, you think like everything's good. They have their traditions, they have their functions, they dance, they go to church every Sunday. The parents and they really are on top of their kids. So if you look from the outside in, you would think, oh, Polynesian families, or the kids, oh, they're good. They not a war in the world, but then it's sad to hear that it's when you look deep into it, for some reason all these kids are committing suicide. So, and I also know in the Polynesian community, sometimes a lot of people don't believe in mental health, especially the elder generation. You know how Polynesian parents are. Love busy. So love busy, because I understand their mentality, because our parents grew up in they're really tough. So like for them, like if you're not physically hurt, they don't like that's what pain means to them. It has to be physical. They don't know. They never had the, I guess, understanding or awareness or education about mental health that we did growing up in our generation. So I understand that can be a lot of misunderstanding from a lot of parents because they don't know about mental health. They weren't educated on it, so they can't recognize symptoms of people that are going through mental health issues. But that's a big topic I have with my friends. A lot of my good friends, my family members, they're suffering through depression, suffering through anxiety, having all these types of disorders mentally. And a lot of them feel like they don't, because like there's a lack of understanding of mental health within the community, nobody shows them any kind of attention or cares to hear about what they go through. So a lot of them have to bottle these emotions in. And of course, if you walk upon this and you notice, if somebody ever talks about their feelings, we like to laugh and
laugh
mock
it off.
and we like to make fun of them. We'll joke, we'll make fun of them, we joke, and sometimes we like Polynesians, our humor can be cruel sometimes. I just want to put it out. Don't be lie. Like we can be really mean to each other at times
without realizing.
And we just be straight cruel, and that can push certain people over the edge. So for me, it just saddens me because when somebody commits suicide, it just literally means that they felt like that death was more easier than living their life. So I'm a big advocate for mental health. I'm a really big advocate for personal happiness. Like you have to do what's best for you. You have to do what makes you happy. If you're in a situation that's hurting you, whether it's a job, whether it's a household, whether it's a family member, whether it's a friend, if somebody is hurting you, causing you pain, then I feel like it's necessary for you to put your happiness first. And I know that can be really, really hard to navigate within the dynamics of the Tongan cultural hierarchy, because in our culture, it's always about the family first. That's what we're taught. I guess the hierarchy of priorities in the Tongan family or household, or it's like God, family, and then I guess getting married and have kids. So a lot of times we have all this responsibility to fulfill. And I remember I had a podcast with somebody. She said that in the definition in the Polynesian culture, the way they define love is by sacrifice. So the more you sacrifice for your family, then that's how they consider you a loving daughter or son. But the moment you do something for yourself and put yourself before your family, for your own personal well-being and happiness, for your own mental health, then automatically they kind of ostracize it and think you're selfish, right? And that is something that's really big. And that's why I feel like mental health, I feel like it's not understood. That's why kids struggle with it, because, I've gone through my own depression sometimes. And if you've been depressed and if you suffered through mental health, you can relate to this. When you go through your mental health issues, sometimes you feel like you're all alone in this world, that nobody cares, nobody's hearing you, you don't feel heard. And the fact that you feel like that you're all alone, that can really put you in a dark place. And that's why it's so important for me we need to educate more people with the Polynesian community about mental health, to reach out. Because, if you don't reach out to let them know, hey, let these kids know that's going through these mental health issues, let them know, hey, it's okay not to be okay. You're not alone. I'm here for you. Look, we still love you. We really appreciate you. So that way kids know, because they don't feel like that they don't know what cares about in this world, because I feel like that's the last straw when just doing my research when it comes to suicide. When somebody feels like that their value and they're insignificant, nobody really cares if they live or die. If they feel that way emotionally, mentally, then that's how they start. That's why they get to that point. So I never want that to happen to anybody. So that's just my piece on mental health. But can you talk about your experience with mental health, and not only with all the people, all the kids that you've worked in New Zealand, but just the people, not only your friends, your family members, also with your own personal experience, if you've ever gone through some mental health issues yourself, and how did you learn to overcome it? Because I feel like everyone is going through something. For me, I know that everybody's suffering through something, and that's why I think you said it earlier. Just be kind. Be a good person. Be kind to everyone, because you just don't know. You literally don't know what is somebody's going through. So, and sometimes when you meet people and they treat you kind of unfriendly, that doesn't mean they're unfriendly person. Maybe they're just going through something. Maybe they're suffering through some mental health issues, and you just happen to meet them at at a bad time. All right. So that's why I always believe just be kind, no matter who.
Right.
So be kind to whoever you meet, because you just never know that your kindness could be the one thing that somebody needed to get through their day and to make it to another day so they could wake up tomorrow. You just never know. So that's why I always believe in kindness. But yeah, can you talk about mental health in your experience and all the people you've come in contact with, like what you learned, and from your friends, and also from your own personal experience yourself?
Yeah, sure. So a lot of the things that I hear when I do talk to, students and my good friends is a lot of the people in their household don't understand.
Mhm.
And, as we talked about a lot, it's just having that space where they want to talk about things, but it gets shut down. And as you said before, when people look into like a Tongan family, say, oh, they look so happy and everything. But another thing that we're good at as well, too, is sweeping everything under the rug. We're very good at doing that. Like, oh, we're not going to know about that thing under the rug, under so many things. You know what I mean? Like, there's, of course, light in our culture, but there's also darkness as well, too. And how we try to hide this darkness is we whakakata, we laugh. And we try to make it lightweight, lighthearted, you know what I mean? Like, oh, like, you know what I mean? Under the rug. But some people don't know how to overcome some of those experiences where someone can just laugh it off, but the other person's like, no, I'm really traumatized. Like, I really want to talk about what happened. And then some of the ones that we love say, like, I don't want to talk about this thing anymore. Like, like, all of these different things, instead of like actually sitting down as we talked about before and just having that healthy space and understanding, like, look, I'm going through something, like, I don't know what it is, and it's okay to not know what it is, but it's crucial to really talk about it and talk about it with people that really care about you. There's going to be people who pretend to care and pretend to be there, but you need to, especially when you're going through these things, it's fundamental you go to someone who actually loves you unconditionally, where you can, even if it's hard, but come to them and say, look, this is what happened, or this is what I'm going through. I, I I'm not happy, I'm not in a good space, and I need help. I just don't know where to start, you know? And I've had an experience as well too where I was immensely depressed. Like, it was the most saddest period of time of my life. And it was I got out of a relationship. This is my first time actually talking about it. I got out of a relationship and it didn't end well. And I was so heartbroken, and I wasn't eating, I wasn't sleeping. And I remember my mom just like, she knew I wasn't happy, you know? And she was like just doing all these different things to cheer me up. And she would sleep with me every night, like, 'cause she just knew I wasn't sleeping. And I just told my mom, I think I need to go to the doctors. And I was like, okay, doctor keha. And I go, I think I'm depressed. That's what I told my mom. And I'm just honestly, my parents are the best. Like, that's my biggest flex. People were like, what's your biggest flex? I go, my parents.
Yeah.
I remember my mom, like, she didn't really get it. But she was like, okay, we go to the doctors tomorrow. So we ended up going to the doctors, and then the doctor's like, okay, so what's going on? Like, what's happening? And I just said it. And my mom's sitting next to me. I go, I feel like I'm depressed because things around me is like, it's not colorful like it used to be.
Yeah.
You know? And so he had to do a survey on me. So he started asking me all these different questions, and then the score came out, and he goes, you are going through depression. And he's like, your score level is high. And he's like, I would recommend and suggest to put you on antidepressants.
Yeah.
And I remember my mom like looking at me like just like heartbroken, because no mother wants to see that. Like,
Yeah.
oh, your child is breaking, and now the doctor's saying, oh, you need to do antidepressants. So they actually got it prescribed to me, and I started taking antidepressants. But this is a huge pivot that happened. So 2 days into taking the antidepressant, I stopped feeling everything else.
Mhm.
So yes, it numbed the pain. Like, I didn't feel it anymore. But it also numbed happiness. It also numbed like being shy. Like, it numbed all the different emotions. And I was thinking to myself, like, is it worth it? So this was more like an inner monologue with myself, like having a
Yeah.
discussion of, is it worth it? And I remember I just threw the antidepressants away, and I told myself, stop running. It was hard. It was really, really hard. Like, crying every night. Like, I was like, I can't survive without this. Like, if I can't have this love, like, I don't know what else I'm going to be. And
Mhm.
then it was that pivot that I had that inner monologue discussion with myself. I was like, you can't run. Like, you don't run from joy. You don't
Yeah.
run from love. Don't run from fear. Why are you running from pain?
Mhm.
So that was more of my own personal journey. And so
Yeah.
coming to that realization and coming to the truth, I just stopped running. And that's why I threw the antidepressants away. And I started to communicate more with my mom and just expressing to her how I felt. And having just a loving person there to just remind you, like, it's okay. Like, everyone will, if not everyone, a huge percentage of people go through heartbreak, go through trauma, go through so many things, but it's how you're going to overcome it. And yes, like, there was some points I just felt alone. Even when my mom was talking to me, I still felt alone because of that pain. But the biggest advice I'll give for people is, give yourself a chance to heal. Give yourself a chance to heal. Find the right resources, even if it takes time. Ask the right questions and stop running. Because I feel like when people run, they turn to different things like drugs, gangs, smoking, alcohol, whatever it is, doing something just rebellious.
Mhm.
And all those experiences are okay, but
Mhm.
be truthful to who you are
Mhm.
and don't run. Like, face it. Because the most beautiful thing about time is it heals all things.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for sharing that, by the way.
Welcome.
Um, thank you for sharing that. And thank you. I know you said that was the first time sharing it, but I do really appreciate that you for sharing it to everybody. Just want to give you a big hug. Give you a big hug right now. But thank you so much, because I felt that pain when you were talking, and I know a lot of people watching this can relate to what you just shared. And I just want to say thank you for sharing that, because and giving hope to everybody. And like I said, that I always tell people, just like, depression is just like a storm. It doesn't. I mean, even as difficult as terrifying that storm may be, but just like all storms, it doesn't last forever. You will
Mm,
persevere, you will pass, but you just have to like find that hope to get out of bed every single day, because eventually one day you will wake up and then everything will be back to normal, and that storm is going to be gone. And then one thing I do know about all storms, we always come out of it stronger than we entered
yeah.
into it. So just much love to everybody out there that's watching this right now and you're going through your own mental health issues. Uh, just want to let you know, seek help. It's okay. Also, like, I know Polynesians have like this pride of not going to seek professional help. It's okay to go and get therapy.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's okay to get therapy. go seek some help, reach out, like you said, reach out to a family friend that you know that loves you unconditionally. And I guess that's my advice for everybody that's going through depression is like, don't do it by yourself. That's like the worst thing you could do is try to do it yourself. Reach out to people. Honestly, reach out to me. You know, I'll if you need somebody to talk to, nobody talking, reach out to me. I'll definitely open up that for you because I just don't. For me, I just don't want another Polynesian sister or brother or anybody, any human being, go through that and feel like they have to take the next step. I do want to ask you. So I know you had your personal experience, but just I know you talked a little bit with the kids, with the New Zealand kids, the teenagers that you said that you talked a lot about mental health, but the problems they deal with when it comes to suicide. So what were the top, you know, when you had the conversation with them, what were the top reasons that stood out to you of why they were suffering with mental health and why they felt like they got to a point where they started feeling suicidal? If you want to share that with everybody right now.
The huge thing for them was the culture. So the pressure to be a certain way, you know, the expectations, and not only that, how to be traditionally as a Polynesian person, you know, like values that their grandparents had, their parents had, and of course they had to uphold that, but living in a different generation. And so that comes down to not the generations not understanding each other.
Yes.
And so a lot of them feel like they're not being heard. And so a lot of them are going to different things, different outlets where they can express themselves. And as you touch base on, it might not be the best, but that's the only space that they have where they feel like they're being heard or getting help. And especially if you're going to the environments where they're not good for you, you suffer even more. So I think it's just, especially when it comes to culture, especially with the older generations, is understanding the time that we live in, but also with us younger generations, understanding the time that they lived in, you know? And that's why it's so essential to have great communication, healthy communication, to talk about these things and creating space. So a lot of them were saying, it's hard for me because I'm Samoan or I'm Tongan or all of these things that come with me, like the expectations or how I should be. And I'm not how my parents want me to be. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's one of the biggest things is culture. And also religion, surprisingly, has a key factor in it as well too.
Yeah, and I remember we're going to dive into this because I feel like this is a very important topic that we definitely discuss, and I feel like that's one. I remember I shared to you early in the podcast that that's what I saw, and that's why I started my podcast, by the way, because I wanted to create a safe place where anybody could come on and speak their truth and be themselves and speak that pain or whatever they're going through. Because, like, you know, like if you keep that pain and that those negative and ill feelings within you, it only deteriorates you and it only makes you worse. You have to find a way to release it, like you said, in a healthy way. And that's why I started my podcast, because I just saw that all my good friends and my family members within our generation, there was a lot of lack of understanding of what they were going through. And of course, you know, our Polynesian culture, we can be really, really, we have that tough love. You know, we have that tough love, and sometimes it's too tough sometimes. And there's a lot of criticism within our culture for men and women, and that can just push kids to the edge and push them away. And that's why I started a podcast and create an open platform for anybody. But like you said, I think you mentioned early in the podcast that everything starts at home. Love starts at home. Happiness starts at home. You know, success starts at home of what we learn at home. And that's why it's so important, I believe, to create an open communication understanding where kids can feel heard and feel loved. And we can still have your boundaries where they know the level of respect between us. But I feel like that we have to have some kind of understanding. And because of our cultural dynamics, and that's my next question I want to ask you is, and this may be a little hot topic, a little hot, put you in a hot seat, because this is a hot topic when every time I talk about it. But I want to ask you, what are first? I guess I'll just say like this. For me, as much as I love the Tongan culture, I love my culture. I love how I grew up, and I'm proud being Tongan. I'm a proud Tongan myself. I understand that our culture isn't perfect. So I'm gonna start off with that. I know there are a lot of great values that our culture has. That's also part of who I am, part of my character. I'll value family. I'm a big family person. I love my family. So that's what drives me to be successful every single day. I want to help them get out the struggle. Our value of, and of course, how we respect, our value of respect in the Tongan culture, how we be respectful. And that's how I build that's why I try to be respectful at all times, who I meet, try to be kind. And of course, we have values of giving. We're giving people. I'm the type of person also, of course, there's limits to how much you can give. Don't give it, but that comes like when self-priority, self-happiness comes along and self-love. But I'm a natural giving person. Like I want to give because that makes me happy to see other people happy. And I also understand that by nature of giving is part of the reasons why I do really well in life, because I always like to meet people and connect with people and make their life better. So those are great values I've learned within myself that made me who I am. But I also understand there are a lot of things that traditions, like beliefs and cultural mentalities that we teach, that I feel like doesn't help the child, but actually hinders their growth and their happiness. So I guess one thing I will share is like the culture of we can't speak up to our parents, to our elders, that we're not allowed at all to speak, because in our culture that's considered like taifapapa or talahui or disrespectful, right? And I feel like that because of that, that's why we have an issue with a lack of open communication and understanding. That if a kid speaks and the kid is trying to voice to you their opinion of their ill feelings, what they're struggling with inside, of how their frustrations, we immediately get shut down, either disciplined, yelled at, reprimanded by our parents. So we are teaching kids to be silent at all times. And what's dangerous about that, as much as I believe in respecting the parents, I'm all about respecting our parents. What's dangerous about shutting down kids and teaching them to be silent, you literally condition them to tolerate things, whether it's right or wrong. So so if somebody treats you right or wrong, whether it was an elder, whatever situation, we're teaching kids to be tolerant, not to speak up, not to fight for themselves, regardless of right or wrong. And that can be very, very dangerous when kids go out into the real world, when they go into a relationship, when they go into a job, when they go into real life settings, situations with people, and they're not getting treated how they should be treated. But because you've been teaching them not to speak up for themselves, that's why a lot of Polynesians, are women and men, we tolerate things and we don't fight for our worth and our value and what we deserve as people. So that's one thing that's one thing for me that I feel like it's something within the culture that I don't believe that it's a healthy thing. I do believe in respect and making sure we respect our parents, but I also believe that as parents, you should allow your kids to speak up also in a healthy way. I understand being disrespectful. You can't just go out there and call your names. No, of course, I understand that. But there is something called if you're an elder generation right now watching this, there is something called healthy communication. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Right. We can communicate in a healthy way. And just because I am challenging what you're saying in a healthy way does not mean I'm trying to disrespect you. I'm not trying to disrespect you. I'm not trying to walk over you. I just have some questions for myself I need answered. And I just need that love and support, because what communication allows you to feel emotionally is that person cares, right? Because like you said, you've been in a relationship, I've been in relationships. When you have open reciprocal communication with your partner, you feel that your partner cares about you, right? but they always shutting you out and they don't communicate back to you from a partner that you love, then you don't feel that affection, that love from the person. You feel like, oh, they don't care. And a lot of kids, like you said, when you don't get that open communication with their parents, a lot of them grow up feeling, oh, my parents don't care about me. And of course, as Polynesians, we have the lack of affection. We're not the most affectionate people in the world. We're not the most affectionate people in the world, but I understand that's just who we are. But you can just, but that's what I see, that how that dynamic or that tradition of not allowing kids to speak up and not creating that safe place, like you mentioned, create that safe place for them to speak. So that way you can understand your child or what they're going through. And that's why oftentimes I see a lot of Polynesian parents, Tongan parents, like complain about their child. Oh my God, my child's doing this, my child's doing this, running around with this, drinking this, I'm like, have you ever sat down and talked to, I mean, I hear that all the time, like the gossip of Filimatuas and just lau, and I'm like, and I'm just thinking, and then just trashing their own kids or their or their cousins or their family. I'm like, have you ever taken the time and asked that person how you doing? What are you going through? No, we just, because there's no communication, we just judge people as they are. And of course, we feel that judgment as kids. So, so that's what I see. And of course, I can go on. There's a lot of things I can say, but I'm gonna give it to you. And I know culture is so taboo and so sensitive to talk about, because we have so many people that love the Tongan culture, very traditional, and I get it, I understand it. But for me, like, I'm all about, if everything, this is what I always say to people, like you just said, the suicide rate. If everything is good, then why are our kids committing suicide? That's what I'm saying. If the culture dynamic is perfect, the family dynamic is perfect, then why are these kids, feeling the need to commit suicide? So apparently there's an issue, and then that's what I'm about. I'm all about discussing things that maybe be difficult to discuss. But for me, it's always about the well-being of a person and making sure that they are good and they're happy. And that's the most important thing to me. So, okay, so can you talk about the Tongan culture? And I know you love your Tongan culture, but what, in your experience, what are things that within the culture do you see that you feel like that doesn't help us, but it's actually something that may be unhealthy or toxic?
I would definitely have to say is the view the Tongan culture has on the perfect ideal on how a Tongan woman should be.
Yeah.
And I wanted to discuss this because, even up to now, it's still taboo. Like, like all of those different things. Like, a real woman doesn't go and drink and smoke.
Yeah.
Or, a good woman doesn't go out. She stays home. A good woman goes and gets education. She's educated. So having this huge expectation that is placed upon a Tongan woman that's living in this time. And it's hard because I still hear it to now, where women will talk or different people will just talk. And it is about that. Like, and all of these different things. But I think what needs to be understood is it's almost like we're putting a rug on Tongan women and saying, like, don't be like this, don't be like that, and you have to be this way, because to be a Tongan woman, this is how it is, and it's put into a box. But everything that's out of a box is looked upon as that's not good, sinner. Their parents didn't raise that girl well. But it's hard because every woman is different,
Yeah.
Especially being a Tongan woman. Some women don't want I'm gonna go and study 4 years and get a law degree.
Yeah.
We're not all like that. Or some who are like, I'm an athlete, I need to train hard. Like, everyone is different. And I think,
or stay home and cook and clean and
Yeah, some women are not just love happy and do those things and cook and clean, like you know what I mean? Or like, there's also that other discussion of like, you know how they say, "Kohon malipe," you're gonna follow your husband,
Yes, to
you
serve,
know,
just to serve your husband. Yeah.
serve your husband. Kapao if he's metotisi, te que metotissimo ko. You know what I
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
mean?
yeah. You're like you're like at the beck and call of your
Yeah.
husband. Yeah.
And I remember we were having lunch one day, and I remember one of my cousins saying like, um, "Oh, have fun, live your life up because ko mali petikin tatu enough mount." I was like, my eye was twitching, and I was like, "Okay, go ahead." I was like, but yeah, it's just that expectation, and it's quite funny. Like, when I do talk to Tongan guys, because they expect that, like they're like, oh, this, they're not used to like, especially with
Independent.
a woman like me, like when I say certain things, they're like, oh, and they always relate it back. But in the Tongan culture, like the woman has to follow the man. I was like, "Pakotay mi hai," like you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah.
It's like, so I think there has to be a space where our community looks at women, and if they don't fit into that box that has been placed upon us for centuries on how Tongan women should be, the expectations and the depression rate and the suicide rate and all those kind of things with our women would be more or less, because there's less room for judgment,
Yeah.
and there's more room for growth. But because the way I look at it, especially being Tongan, because we've never been colonized and our land was given to God, that I met who like that. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
unconditional love. People have forgotten that, especially being Tongan, that unconditional love. And you don't see Jesus Christ and God judging. Especially if you read the Bible and stuff. A lot of the people that he helped were people that weren't perfect. And I think when we look at our women like that, and even our Tongan people like that, there won't be room for judgment and gossip and taranoa mali and all of that stuff. We just
Hmm.
look and understand, and also having the perspective of maybe that person is going through something like you touched based on. You just never know. So yeah, the expectation of how a Tongan woman should be, yes, that's something I'm very vocal about.
I know that. I know that's something I always hear from a lot of people, and a lot of Polynesian women, right? Because like you said, everybody's different, and and that's the thing. I think that's something like the people. It's hard for them to grasp the reality that our culture can improve, and because this is one thing. This is what I guess a lot of people always tell me. Our culture. I can't change. We're not allowed to change the culture. I guess that's like a lot of the backside of opinion people, the hardcore traditional Tongans. They always say that to me. For me, you were just born yesterday. Like, what do you know about culture? Our culture is
Yeah,
always the same. Our culture is always the same. And I always tell people, no culture is always the same. Culture has progressed throughout the years in civilization. Back then, a couple of years ago, women couldn't vote. that was a culture, and then now you guys have more opportunity. Now you have more liberty. It's even the same thing. Our culture has progressed throughout time. I think one of my favorite quotes is like, culture doesn't make the people. The people, we make the culture. So we determine depending on the time, because the culture of what our parents went through in their time um, worked out their time, and I feel like we have to adjust accordingly to our time, because we're in an age right now that women are given an opportunity and they can be successful, and also the dynamic of like having both parents to work now, like you see a lot of what I see a lot of women working now, and they're the ones bring the breadwinners. They're the ones actually bringing in the money, then the guy, right? And so, like, you know, are you gonna if a girl is doing really well for a career, are you gonna tell her to stop working and come home?
Yeah.
Because, you know, because of the culture, or are you gonna allow her to keep working and be the breadwinner and be the one to support the family? So it's a different time now. You know, I guess back then, of course, I understand men because back then, you know, women didn't have the opportunities that we have now, so they had to rely on the men. But this is a different time now where opportunity is given to everybody, and I think that people like, especially the older generation, they have the hard time grasping that. So for you, like, did you ever feel like that you were limited by the culture, or what you said that your parents always gave you that safe place your whole life?
Well, I was always protected by my parents.
Yeah.
There was never really an expectation because I didn't grow up in the traditional Tongan household, like a lot of some Tongan people grew up in, because my father was a musician and my mom was a creative in terms of like designing, putting clothes together, making shoes. So it was a very artistic kind of family. So my parents were very open-minded, and there was always that space where I can just be freely who I want to be with no judgment. But outside of that, there was like a lot of like, oh my gosh, like, why would you do this, that, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm thankful that I built that backbone within my household, because when people do say things to me, I'm not afraid to speak up. I'm not afraid to say like, oh, but your upbringing is different from mine. I'm not saying yours is wrong and I'm right. I'm just saying it's different, and you have to be open to different opinions, you know, different conversations. And it can get hard, especially like with dating, as I touched base on, because a lot of guys expect a certain type of Tongan woman. And ever since I can remember being a very young girl, I've always had opinions, never been ma. I've always spoke my mind. And sometimes that's a lot for guys to take. Like, it's too much. And I've heard that too. They're like, you're a lot. But the way I look at it is, they had an expectation of coming in, especially when talking to me, with thinking, okay, I'm higher than you and then you're below me. But you know, when I have a discussion, especially with a male, I don't see it that way. I look at it, we're equal, just with different opinions and different experiences. And that is okay. But I think when people come with the expectations of, oh, but this is how I was raised, and the way that you're raised, that's wrong. And I'm like, but is it wrong though? Or is it just different? Yeah. So it's quite fascinating and unique in its own way.
I know it's I feel like that's you know, that's one of the, I guess that's one of the things about culture. It can hinder you as far as your expansion of your mindset of, you know, trying new things, right? And like you said, just because something is different does not necessarily mean it's wrong. You know, and that's the thing when you grow up if you grow up in a very hardcore household, or traditionally, or you go very traditional with your parents, then everything that's outside the culture is immediately like wrong. Like, it's just. But instead of taking the time, for me, I'm not gonna lie, I used to be that guy, where I was very traditional. I just, the guys, for me, I, had that mindset. But I guess I realized that I guess when I just started talking to different types of people, and I realized, oh wow, there's actually a lot of things that we can learn from other people, and different things. So the concept of, like you said, equal, right? A reciprocal attention to everybody being the same. Because sometimes as guys, we tend to go into situations. I'm the guy. Listen to me. I control this. I control everything. Right. And for me, I've always been the type of person, I guess, that if something's not working, I guess it's just common sense for me to stop doing it. I think that's always been inside of me ever since I was a kid, For some people, you're like, if something's not working, but they'll just stick to their beliefs. Okay, I don't care if it's not working. I don't care if
Yeah.
then I just realized that, you know, if you're always trying to dominate something, or, you know, think you're always right, or you never take in consideration of somebody else's opinion, you can't build great relationships with people. I just learned that being around people. I just learned that you have to give them the same amount of attention as they give you.
Right.
So since you brought up dating, let's just go let's just go into that little that topic, if you don't mind. So, because I know dating is a big thing with Polynesians. You know, like
Yeah.
we have to get married. That's something our parents ask us every single day. If you, of course, go to church, that's what they ask every single day. When you get married, when you get married, when you get married. So I want to ask you, you know, what was the? Can you talk about dating? And I guess I know you shared a little bit, but you know, what's the hardest thing about trying to date? And of course, especially for you, because I can tell you're a vocal person. You know, you can just tell. You know, you speak your mind. You're independent. You have confidence in yourself. You know what you bring to the table. You know your worth. You know your value. In a culture where in a society where everything's dominated by men, that can be very what's that word? I can't. There's a word for it. Intimidating. Oh, there you go. They can be very intimidating, especially for me at a workplace. And I always talk to because a lot of sometimes the women in my workplace, because where I work is like men dominated. So that's always they always talk about like like when they go into a place where a lot dominated by men, you know, as women you have to you have to be strong, because like other men will just walk all over you. So I feel like that because of your natural personality, who you are, and your mindset, that can be very intimidating for a lot of guys. So I want to ask you, how was dating for you, being a Tongan woman, and adding culture to it, also like just your experience with men that just like just because you're not fitting the mold of what the girls that their parents expect them to marry, then and how you deal with that, if you want to share that real quick.
Yes. So dating for me, in all honesty, is hard.
Yeah.
And the reason being is because guys meet me and they're like, oh my gosh, yes. So they see the exterior.
Diamond Langi. They already know it's a Diamond Langi they see on.
They just see the exterior. They're like, okay, yes. And then, because I'm naturally, when I let my walls down, I'm a lover at heart.
Yeah.
So, you know, they see the exterior and they're like, okay. And then when they start to get to know me, they become extremely intimidated. And the reason why they become extremely intimidated is because we can bring up different topics and we can take it there. We can have that discussion for hours.
Yeah.
And some of them, sometimes they can't take it to that level where, you know, some discussions they can just keep it at shore. But for some reason, I can always have discussions and take it out into the ocean. Like we can go there, we can swim deep, you know?
Yeah.
And it makes a lot of guys feel uncomfortable because they see the exterior and I feel like a lot of them, they had the expectations of, oh, you know, she's just about beauty. She's probably not smart. They have this like, she's probably not all there, which that's so good. Probably not clicked on. Then when they really start to get to know me and they really get to see like Diamond, like, because I'm a nerd at heart. I really am. Like outside of glitz and glam, like I love to read. Like I watch TED Talks, all of those different things. I'm into documentaries. So when they see like that side of Diamond, it's like they get intimidated and then they start to change. So it becomes hard. So at first it's a beautiful experience, you know, getting to know each other. Then we start to date. I get to know them, they get to know me. Then when they start to see who I am and what I bring to the table, the discussion changes. And then they get into the mind frame of when they get intimidated. So they feel like they need to act a certain way. So a lot of them, it's funny, and I see a pattern.
Yeah.
So a lot of them, like, they start to like not contact me as much, like to play hard to get, like, you know what I mean? Just to keep me more interested, I guess. But you know, like my good friend is a psychologist, so I kind of know like when they into these different mind frames.
Yeah.
And then, or they'll start to play games, like they'll start to talk to different girls just to boost their ego up.
Oh my
And
God,
then
yeah.
it's funny, like it's like, I
Yeah.
always say to people, like, if I were to direct a movie, I would my first movie would be about love because it would be hilarious. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, and then I feel insecurity comes in, like because they had an expectation and that expectation was completely
Yeah.
different. And now they're in a space that sometimes they don't feel they're safe. So they start thinking different things like, oh, Diamond's probably a player. She probably talks to many guys. After we get off the phone, she's probably like going on a different date. But not having that trust and understanding, like maybe she's just reading at home, reading a book. Maybe she's
Yeah.
asleep, you know? So it starts out beautiful, then it becomes a bit hilarious, and then it gets complicated, and then I feel they they're always trying to boost their ego up because they're intimidated, and things never work out. And I'm always the one that's like walking out, even though it hurts because like you invest so much time and you
Yeah.
care,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then like you end up walking out because like I feel it's so important for women to know your worth and know what
Hmm.
you deserve. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
there's gonna be someone out there, even if it takes years, and it's okay. That's
Hmm.
just gonna accept you for being who you are. But oh my gosh, my dating life is the funniest. Like it just, oh my gosh. And for some reason, like every time things don't work out, my ex, all my exes always try to come back, and I'm like, oh, see if I'm a mommy, okay? You had it. It's like this is not a. Oh wait, okay. Like I know what I had now. Let me come back. No, 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 okay. Yeah.
Oh
So
man.
that's my dating life. Like it's just funny, and but I think especially for men and women, be very picky. You gotta be very, very picky in who you pick because this is the person you're gonna be spending your whole life with. And don't settle. Like I know some people are like, um, I'm probably gonna get burnt in the fire by this, but I don't even care. Like if you get pregnant to someone and you don't love them, especially in our culture, they're like,
Yeah. Mali.
Mali, because you had a baby with. No, because it's going to be crazy down the line. Like, choose someone, even if you had a baby with someone else, choose someone that you can see yourself being with. Be picky. Even if you have a kid, like that doesn't matter. You know what I mean? They're like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, we
Oye, go hi, Lea.
Diamond.
Time. No, you're absolutely true. No, no, especially when it comes to what you just said right now with women or men feeling like they have to marry somebody just because you had a baby with. And I want to take it another step further. If you don't love somebody, if you don't love somebody, right, and you force yourself to be with them, that love is never going to be healthy, right? It's
No, it's
always going
not.
to be healthy. And what's worse is now that child that you're going to have is going to grow up watching their parents have an unhealthy love. And because that's why I feel like a lot of women and men stay in toxic relationships, because I feel like you said love starts at home, and a lot of girls and guys see toxic love between their parents, and that becomes their ideal or
Mhm.
definition of what love is, and that's what the type of relationship they look into, and they don't realize that's not the right type of love. There's actually a better love out there. But that's one thing I always, yeah, that's one thing I always say is like, if I believe that too. What you just said, like if you don't love the person, it's fine. Go find somebody, but it's more important to find somebody that you love, so that way the child grows up and sees that right type of love,
Yeah.
and not grow up seeing unhealthy or toxic love, and they end up, and that's what they usually the love we see at home from our parents is usually the type of love we go and seek as people. So
Absolutely.
so yeah, I'm just as you're talking about this, I just had like I was just thinking about just hella funny. So for you, I guess did you culturally, like, do you ever feel like was it as far as your parents, like, they just allow you to date whoever you want to date, or is there, did they give you any kind of expectations? Because I know some Tongan, because I know for a lot of women, they have this, and then I know this is a cultural thing within our generation, that they feel like they have to get married by 30, to find somebody by 30, and you just talk about settled. So I know I've seen that with a lot of women as they get older, that their biological clock starts ticking louder,
Yeah.
and they get afraid. So the first guy they get, they just settle and get married, because
Yeah.
they just, because you know how our culture is. If you're, the older you get as a woman, and you don't get married, I don't know if this ever happens to you, but do you ever have people feel like you're difficult, like because you're being picky, or you're not married yet? Because do you ever feel like the people like say that you're a difficult person? Because I remember I had a conversation with a podcast with a girl before. She got made a little after 30, but then she always told me, yeah. I remember like my family or my church would say, oh, she's difficult. She's a very difficult girl, because because I feel like if you don't get married, they have this perception that you have to get married super early as Polynesians. So did you ever feel that vibe, or people thinking that about you, that you're a difficult woman because you know your worth, you know your value, and you just don't date anybody?
No, I haven't, but I think what has been said is like, oh, like it only has to be the best because her father, because my dad is like, like my dad is not a churchman, so he's a musician. And when I say musician, like my dad has done it all, like lived the rock style life. And people who do meet my dad become very intimidated because he has a very strong presence to him.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful that's my dad, because guys know not to muck around, you know what I mean? Because when they do know who my dad is, they're like, oh, like, okay. But the discussion is more of like, oh, but would her dad like him?
Yeah.
It's not so like, oh, she's difficult or she's picky. It's like, oh, because everyone knows, like, I love my dad, like my parents, I love them so much, like, and their opinion really, really matters to me, So it's not so much of like me, it's more of like, oh, but if he can win over my dad, then I'm like, oh, okay, Because like my dad is matengataha. He can see right through it. Like if a guy comes, he'll look at me like, and it's funny, like if my dad is coming, like let's just say if I'm dating someone, like this actually happened, and he was visiting my brother, and my dad was gonna come. He wanted to leave and not be there, like because he didn't want to meet my dad, and I knew that indicated to me right away. I'm like, no, like if you can't face my pops, like this ain't gonna work out.
Oh, that's mad funny.
Yeah.
So Flo, can you share can you share your experience as far as like healthy love? What does that mean to you? What does a healthy relationship mean? Because I feel a lot of girls need to hear it, and men too, that's hearing this. And of course, all the men out here, I just want to say, don't be afraid. I guess all the men out here that's watching this, like, don't be afraid. But yeah, can you talk about, because I feel like that that's really really important, because I feel like just my observation with a lot of Polynesians, a lot of them don't know what a healthy relationship is. And I've seen a lot of Polynesians stay in toxic relationships, stay in bad relationships. And I understand that all starts at home, and I get that. But that's why I really believe that we definitely need to educate our people, educate our youth to know about these things. Because I remember growing up, like, in the Tongan culture, we never talk about love. We never talk about relationships.
Right,
we never talk about sex. Like, these are things that we just we never talk about, and we had to learn that on our own.
Right. Yeah.
So that can be very, very, very difficult if we never talk about these things. And I feel like that's something in our culture that we definitely need to improve, is having these discussions with our children at an early age, and not consider as a taboo.
Yeah.
I feel like that definitely have discussions, but I know sometimes, so can you talk about the young Diamond Langi. So what did the young Diamond Langi think what a healthy relationship was, and compared to now? And I'm just interested in what you learned from, because I feel like our definition of love is younger. I remember when I was, I don't, if you're a guy, you all relate to this. When you're young as a guy, the only thing we care about is the physical, the physical attributes. I mean, I'm just being honest. When I was younger, that's all I cared about is how she looked like, her physical attributes. And if you're a guy, you know what I'm talking about. Then as you grow older, I realized for myself, like, the physical part of a person doesn't carry the relationship. Our relationships takes connection, it takes understanding, it takes having those deep conversations and be able to relate to one another and talk to one another, share things with one another and build. I always like to compare a relationship to a house. A house, you have to build a house, you have a strong foundation. But if you're constantly repairing and fixing a broken house, you end up living in a broken house and you end up being broken.
Right.
So you have to have a relationship that's reciprocal that you have to build. And I guess we don't learn that in early age. At an early age, we always focus on the physical, but then you realize when you get into relationships with people that you don't have really great chemistry with or great understanding with, or their values don't align with yours. And you realize then, after the honeymoon phase, after the honeymoon phase in the beginning of the relationship, after that dies down, and you realize, and you really get to know this person, and you realize, oh wow, like, oh my God, I can't really talk to certain things about what I love and passionate about with her, because that's as far as she goes. So, but now I've learned about connection, understanding, reciprocation. But that's why I really think it's really important to talk about love at a really early age. So we know about these things before we go into the real world. So can you talk about your in the early age of Diamond Langi and what you thought love was and what you thought what a healthy relationship was, and you compare it to now of how you learned, and I'm sure you learned about personal growth and personal happiness for yourself, and now what's your definition of a healthy relationship and what you look for in a relationship compared to what you looked for when you were really young?
So my definition of love when I was a young girl, I definitely would have to say is, of course, someone that was cute. Like, I was into like cute, popular, especially being like, like the it guy. And just like going on like cute dates, like that for me, that was like love. Like I was like, oh, that's like the perfect definition of love. And then no fighting. That's what I was like. Okay, no fighting. But now my definition of love is, I've seen a quote, which is my mantra, is relationship is not ownership, it's partnership.
Yep. That's true.
And I feel so many people get into relationships, and when they get into relationships, they're like, okay, don't be like this now, don't do this, don't do that, don't. And it's just like the list goes on and on. And for me, you have to have the understanding, like, in order for it to be healthy, you have to let that person be how they want to be. Like, you know what I mean? Of course, you can compromise and do the things that you need to do, but I just don't believe in ownership. Like if I'm dating a guy, I'm not going to be like, oh, you better be home at this time. It's having that trust to let them go, do what they need to do, and have that healthy relationship. But man, let me tell you, I've been in some funny relationships where it's just like intense. And when I say intense, it's like, don't wear this, don't go here, don't hang out with this person. How come you're out at this time? And I'm like, money. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I didn't live in a controlled or grow up in a controlled atmosphere like that. But then, I've learned throughout the years that was their definition of love, and that's how they seen their parents be. But I always tell people, like right from the get-go, especially from guys, I'm like, listen, I'm a dragon. I don't like to be controlled. Okay.
Hey,
like I will rebel. I'm a rebellious heart. I'm like, so, I always say that. I'm like, especially when I get into relationships, I let them be free. And when I feel like they don't let me be free, it's hard,
Yeah.
you know? It's like I wanted them to let them do whatever they want to do because I had that trust.
Yeah.
But for them, it's like, no, they can for api and don't do that. Don't be too ambitious. You're too driven. I'm like, oh Yahweh. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's actually that's a really good quote, by the way, for everybody that's watching. Actually, I remember running into that quote, but I guess for me, it's, what I take from that is like one of the things I believe in relationship is reciprocation. Making sure that you guys are coming together and giving the same amount of energy and effort towards another. I don't really, because like you said, when it's ownership, then it's one sided. I usually see that a lot. Girls girls and guys that feel like that it's one sided, that they have to do everything. I have to do all this to please the other person.
Right.
And of course that's really toxic, and that they ended up losing themselves because you can't please somebody that don't want to be in a relationship, or you never satisfy a person unless they want to be satisfied. So that's why you have to choose people that choose you.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. So everybody that's watching, just make sure that so I guess the one thing you said, make sure it's a partnership. That's important for you. Make sure it's a partnership within that person. Allow them to be themselves. Is there anything you want to add to that? For everybody to hear?
For those who, because we have different experiences, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But for those who still like think about trauma or their experiences, I think it's crucial and so fundamental before getting into another relationship that you heal.
Yeah.
Because when you don't do this,
yes.
You go into a relationship and, like, let's just say if it's a guy and then your ex-girlfriend cheated on you and all that stuff, you get into that new relationship and you're skeptical. You're like, oh my gosh, this girl's gonna cheat on me. I'm gonna go through this experience again. So you have to heal and take time out. Like I said, like it's like touched based on earlier, like don't run. Like don't run from your pain, don't run from your experiences. But if you want to experience the purest form of love and the greatest form of love, one must be able to commit to themselves to heal, and to love themselves like 100%, because then you date, and trust me, like I've been on a couple of dates to let you young girls know, young guys know, to say like some people don't go through that stage of healing. So when they get into relationships, it's toxic. It's not healthy. Like they keep referencing you to their last experiences.
Yeah.
Take time out. Yeah.
Yeah, because like whenever you don't heal, allow yourself to heal, then like you said, you're always taking the experiences, and also you're more susceptible for ownership, for somebody controlling you, because you're not at a good place. And this is something I always hear from a lot of girls, or just like guys, also people post on social media, which I feel like it's not it's a toxic quote, but they always say, I'm looking for a guy that will complete me. or a girl, or I'm looking for a girl that will complete me. And just for me, no man or woman should ever complete. You should already be complete by the time you go into a relationship. You don't need a guy to tell you how beautiful you are. You don't need a girl to tell you your worth and value of what you can do in your life. That's something that you should already be complete. And then you find somebody who's willing to share that with you.
Absolutely.
So but that's I hope I hate it when I see people post that. But whenever I see somebody post that, it shows me that they're broken. When people say, "Man, I'm looking for somebody to complete me," then I'm like, then I'll always say, is something wrong with you? You need to be fixed. And they really think about, and then they start thinking about it. Well, and then they realize, then they're not kind of realize what they're saying. But yeah, whenever somebody says, or the one I always hear the most, I need somebody to make me happy. I hear that all the time. Right?
Yeah.
Whenever somebody says that, I know for a fact they're broken. They haven't healed yet, because you are responsible for your own happiness. Because if you're waiting for somebody, if you want somebody else to be in control of your happiness and in control of to make you feel complete, then that's when it no longer becomes a partnership. That's when it becomes ownership. Now you're in the mercy of that person, of the individual. So your whole validation of how you feel about yourself is controlled by that person. So just want to just put it out there for everybody. If that was your favorite quote, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to destroy that for you, to break that quote you. But I just wanted to put it out there, because at the end of the day, I mean, I want everybody to find love. Like, everybody does deserve love. So you should definitely definitely know what you deserve and your worth, and definitely go out there.
Absolutely. Yes.
And I know it's also, let me ask you this, what do you think what's the hardest thing about dating within this culture and generation? I'm just interested to hear your thoughts. I don't know if it's different from New Zealand, but I'm just interested, because I know for a lot of people, it can be really, really hard to date in this culture. And because this culture, social media, it's really, really tough, especially if you're a good person.
Yes.
So in just your experience within our culture, within this generation, what do you think is like one of the hardest things that as a generation that we have to go through when it comes to finding love? Because it's no longer like the old-fashioned type of love that our parents had. This is a kind of a difficult thing. So what do you think in this culture, why is it so hard to navigate through love in relationships?
Well, I definitely would have to say is because there's more options and there's more access that's easier. If you like, oh, things are not working out, it's like, oh, let me just jump on any kind of social media and look for something else.
Yeah.
And what I'm seeing a lot is a pattern of people are just not trying anymore, because there's a huge volume of options out there. You know what I mean? And they get distracted. Oh, the grass is greener on the other side. There's a lot of fidelity that's happening. There's just because temptations, we're seeing something else. Like we're seeing like, oh, what's better, or what do we deserve? But like, I think it's because I took a social media break for a period of time, and later on in my life, I'm actually going to disappear off social media. But for me, I felt like a lot of people were putting up a facade on how they should portray themselves to be. And for me, it's become difficult because, when people go on my social media, and I know this because I've talked to so many people, like it's always, oh my gosh, I thought you were stuck up. I thought, oh, like, not to be mean, but I thought you were dumb. Like, different kind of things, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and when people see that, like, they see the exterior, especially for men, when they look at me, like, they automatically go like, they start to assume this is how she is. This is what it is, and all of that kind of stuff. And it makes it hard because when we do end up dating, like I said, and I touched base before, they assume certain things are going to be a certain way. You know what I mean? And it's quite interesting, but I think what's important is we need to have that human connection again, where people are losing the touch of that, like their connection now is, oh yeah, I'll just message you, or like all this. People don't talk anymore. Like even the art of writing letters is not even big anymore. Everything is just so fast paced, easy on the go. Oh, if this doesn't work out, next I got a different option. But it's hard for me because I'm a very old school lover, and I always tell people I was born I was
the wrong time.
I was born in a very, very long time, like in the wrong time, because when people say things, or like when we have discussions, even like with my girls, like they'll be like, oh, just date this guy and this guy and like all this kind of stuff. But I can't do that because my heart won't allow me. Because like
Yeah.
I'm like, if I connect with someone, like that's just me. You know what I mean? I'm a
Yeah.
lover in
Yeah.
that sense. I'm
Yeah.
not a lover in the sense of like I changed like how filters come and go. Like we have so many options of filters these days. It's but yeah, I think it's hard because of those reasons, and also because a lot of people are afraid to be themselves.
Yeah.
Like I feel like that with some guys. Like some guys will like if I talk to them, they're like, oh, I'm really not like that on social media. I'm like, yeah, I can tell because you speak differently. Like it's so it's a facade, you know,
Yeah.
because we've we've have been made to conform into this social media life of perfection. Like, what is the definition of perfection? Like, how should I be in order for people to see that I'm perfect? And like, sometimes you watch my stories, you'll be like, oh my gosh, Diamond, like this girl is just out of it, like goofy. But I show people like how I am, and I say things like truthfully. And sometimes people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you said that. But I'm like, if I'm not gonna say it, who's gonna say it? Like, I've made it clear I'm not a perfect person, I'm not here to be perfect. But yeah, it's very hard in this time with social media. Like, yeah. And it's funny when people ask me like, oh, what's your social media? I'm like, I don't have social media.
also social media. Also,
Oh, I don't do that.
I guess the last thing I want to ask you, and I think you just said it a couple seconds ago. Being yourself, in a world full of expectations, in a world full of standards and superficial qualities and things that society tries to put us all in one box. But people don't understand the value. A lot of people undervalue themselves of who they are, and that's always been for me. I'm a big advocate not only for happiness, but I want people to be themselves, because I truly believe that you can't really be happy if you're not yourself.
Absolutely, yes.
And I feel a lot of the pain and the things that we go through mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually is like not being able to be ourselves, to express who we are. And that's always been something I'm a big advocate for, and I push. There's a lot of the content I push it on my social media. It's just I want to encourage people just to be unapologetic, be themselves. And because when you finally become yourself, when you finally listen to your heart, to your mind, to your spirit, listen to your own intuition, I feel like this is. I just read this the other day. I wanted to share with everybody. The universe gives us signs in our journey in life, in order to guide us to our true purpose and calling, and to our happiness in life. But it's hard for you to see these signs if you're not yourself, if that makes sense. So if you're trying so hard to be somebody else you're not, if you're trying so hard to fulfill the expectation of your family or society, it's really hard to hear the voice of the universe. Or you want to take it into religion, you can hear the voice of God, or the signs that happen within our path in life. And because sometimes I do believe opportunities always arrive in your life, but sometimes you can't see the opportunity because you're so blinded because you're trying to be something else. So
Right.
that's why I really believe in personal growth, personal happiness, and people be themselves. Because once you finally be yourself and listen to your own thoughts and listen to your own spirit and your own mind, then you'll be able to fully understand like what you want out of life. Because now you're being yourself. But because when you're not yourself, you're always going to be insecure, right? If you're always going to be trying to be something else, that's why the insecurity comes in. When you're insecure, that's where fear comes in. When you're afraid, that's when it stops you from actually pursuing and moving forward in your life. That's why I really believe that confidence and everything that we look for in life, whether it's happiness, confidence, love, relationships, success, it all starts to just from you. And it all starts with you just being yourself, and then everything else will reveal itself, and of course then you start to see that life. So can you talk about you being yourself? And I know you talked about your whole life, but can you talk about being yourself, and I guess can you share to the audience things you do that maybe people might say I'm sorry, things that a part of things that you do, or things that you're passionate about, or how you think, or whatever whoever you are, but things you do in your life then that's maybe kind of like out of the norm compared to everybody else. But at the end of the day, you don't care about what everybody say. This is you, who you are, and you're just gonna do you. So can you talk about that, just being yourself, and things you do that maybe your family may feel like it's weird, or your culture may feel like it's weird, or people, may think it's weird, but it's just who you are, and it gives you peace and joy, and because that's just who you are in life. So can you talk about that real quick and share that with everybody?
Yeah, so I feel like ever since I was a young girl, I've never been afraid to express, you know,
Yeah.
and it's all due to, having a great space to be that due to my parents. So growing up, I've always felt like I was different, and sometimes like my jokes are funny, and sometimes it's like cricket noises. Like I have dry hair. I have a long dry hair most of the time, and I'm okay with it. Sometimes I laugh at my own jokes, and people look at me. I don't care. I'm laughing at my jokes. At least someone's laughing, and that's me. So I've created a space within myself that I'm comfortable with who I am. And like there'll be topics that like I know some people will be like, oh my gosh. Like I like to like watch different documentaries on like animals and insects.
Yeah.
Because I'm really interested in their behavior. Like, like it's just really fascinating. It's like I remember I was talking about octopuses, and then one of my friends like, what in the world? Like, you're doing research on octopuses? And I was like, yes, like, because what drew me to them is because they're very highly intelligent creatures. And, some are aware that they change colors, but we don't know why. So I wanted to really actually get into depth with that. And I'll talk about it, and people are like, like people don't expect that from me because I'm a tahine teo. I love to dress.
Yeah.
Like, I'm feeling late to the T.
Yeah.
And when I start talking about like things like this or science, like people are like, I can't put this together. Like, this is not making sense to me right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And I really don't care. And I think, you know, I learned this from my acting coach. Don't be afraid to bring out the childlike qualities within yourself. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like,
yeah. Oh yes. Oh yes.
like play with it, and it's okay. Like some people might look at you and be like, oh my, like it's strange and this is weird, but like bring it out, bring that playful side out of you, and if you're curious, even if you're curious about the most like strangest things, like, you know, don't be afraid to talk about it, and don't be afraid to be who you are, because like I feel as we're moving, like more into all of these different things that are coming out with apps, like I'm seeing a cycle of conforming. You have to be a certain way, and especially with filters, like there's nothing wrong with if you use filters, there's nothing wrong with that, but now I'm seeing every picture that I see that's uploaded, there's a filter on it, and it's almost like society is, if you don't have a filter on, you're not going to look the part.
Mm-hmm.
So um earlier this year I made an announcement, like one of my New Year's resolution was like, I'm not going to wear so much makeup, going to wear my natural hair out, not even going to use filters. But the reason why I wanted to do that is because I wanted the younger girls like that do follow my journey and my page to be comfortable within themselves. Like, you know what I mean? Like some of these filters are just unrealistic, like having a small tiny nose, like, that's what makes us so special being Polynesian. That's how they
Yeah.
can spot us. Like, why are we trying to look more westernized? You know what I mean? Like, so it's just being comfortable, and it's okay if you're in a space where you're insecure and there's different things. I'm here to tell everyone I have
Yeah.
my insecurities, but it's that positive self-talk that you need to give yourself each and every single day to be who you are and to be comfortable. Like, and like I said before, there's gonna be people who's gonna like you, and there's gonna be people who don't. And And
that's okay. That's
yeah,
okay. They're lost.
doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah. Yo, thank you, man. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. I'm definitely a lot of people definitely need to hear that. I think one of the things I forgot to mention, but I feel like that, you know, if you never be yourself, you won't attract the right people for you.
No. Yeah.
You know, even though I'm telling you, there's always people out there, because I'm really big on energy and vibes. So like, you know, when I meet somebody, like I have, like, if I don't feel that energy that's aligned with my energy and my vibe, for me it's like I just want to surround myself with people that match my energy. And I guess maybe your intuition or your gut feeling, but when I just don't feel the right energy for somebody, and I'm not judging, I just realize I'm always at my happiest when I meet people within the same energy
Right.
as me. And then I realized that the people that I always find the same energy is because I just be myself, and I'm always laughing, joking around, talking about random things, just speaking my mind. That energy of mine may push people away. That's fine. But I usually find people that come around, hey man, and we talk, and then we just click. And it's just because we have the same mindset and the same joke or humor and that same
Yeah.
energy. And then I know, okay, this is the person I want to be with. That's what I was saying is, like, when you just be yourself, unapologetic of what you say, your mindset, you're gonna attract the right people for you, and you're gonna push away the people that's not for you. Because if you're, like you say, if you like octopuses, that's great, right? If you like to watch National Geographic, that's cool. So the people that think National Geographic is weird, they won't approach you. But then that one person in the room is like that likes that stuff. He's gonna see you because you're open about it. Hey, I like National Geographic too. I'm gonna go to that person, and then you're gonna attract the right people. So that's why I always feel like when you always put that facade up, like you mentioned before, like a lot of people do on social media, then you're gonna attract that. You're gonna attract people that's gonna be attracted to that facade. But when they finally know who you are, they'll be like, "Oh, you're not the person I was attracted to. I like the other person."
Right.
Because
Right.
because you were never upfront of being who you are in the beginning of a relationship. So
Right.
yeah, that was that vela. You know, you spit that vela today. that was that fire.
Those flames.
Those flames, those fire, that fire. I need to call 911 right now. Man, I think we've come to the end. Man, time has gone so by fast. Thank you so much for sharing all the things we talked about in your life story. I really enjoyed it. You shared a lot of great things. I know a lot of people who are watching today can relate to. And first of all, I just want to say thank you so much. I'm very grateful. And because I always tell people all the time is, you don't understand how hard it is and the courage it takes for somebody to speak up and be vulnerable and open themselves up. So just want to say thank you so much, allowing us to, you know, hear part of your story, some of the things that you probably never shared before and you're willing to share with us, so you can inspire and help somebody that's watching this. So thank you so much. Much love. Malo pito. Thank you. Thank you. But I guess I'll ask you what I always ask every guest at the end of the show. If you could just share some final words of wisdom, some inspirations just to end it off. So after everything you've gone through in your whole life that you shared with everybody, can you just share some final thoughts, some final words of wisdom, and just some final inspiration to everybody? And we will close off the podcast with that.
Yes, so I'm gonna leave everyone with the saying "makta," and what that means is it is written. So our journey has already been written, and all the experiences that you go through, any different situations, always remember what is meant for you is always going to be for you, regardless. It might not come the time that you want it to come, but it will come to you because it has already been written. And I send out positive vibes to you all, joy, and great affirmations towards you, each and everyone that's tuning in today, and also for you too as well too, Will, because what you're doing is not easy, you know, reaching out to people, hearing out their stories, and also sharing your story as well too. But I feel you are going to be blessed tremendously because your loto is in the right place. It's loto ma'a, you know? And what you're trying to do is give back and help people. And I can't wait to see you keep growing in your journey. And I'm going to be
Yeah.
following and keeping tabs on it. And also to everyone that's tuning in, just always remember nothing is concrete solid. Whatever, anything that you're going through, it's just going to happen for that time space, and then it's gonna go. So makta, it is written. Go out and get what is meant for you. Ofatu.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Everybody that's watching. Much love. Off out to everybody. Have a great day. And I'm gonna go ahead and press the stop button, and I'm gonna talk to you right after. Give me 1 second.
Okay, cool.